Chapter 1071. As soon as Fanguo and the rest appeared, they unleashed their strongest aura. In an instant, the entire flying cloud cliff was shrouded in a terrifying aura. Moreover, Fanguo and the rest were here to kill. Therefore, their powerful aura contained a terrifying killing intent. Bang! 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 Wherever they passed, countless buildings, trees, and even the disciples of the flying cloud cliff could not withstand the force and exploded into pieces. They suddenly suffered a sneak attack that they had never experienced before. Many disciples of Flying Cloud Cliff, including the higher-ups, were stunned. They did not know what had happened, where these people came from, and why they attacked Flying Cloud Cliff. Did they not know that Flying Cloud Cliff was one of the most powerful forces of the Monster Clan? Who dares to behave atrociously at Flying Cloud Cliff? Just as everyone was wondering how these people could kill their way up, the experts of Flying Cloud Cliff had already rushed into the sky and pounced on Fanguo and the rest. Fanguo and the rest sneered. They stretched out their hands, which turned into the size of a mountain, and slammed down. Rumble, the sky was instantly shattered. The experts of Flying Cloud Cliff who rushed out were blasted into dust before they could even react. At the same time, Fanguo and the rest began a large-scale attack. Their hands slammed down one by one, covering the entire Flying Cloud Cliff in an instant. With one slap, countless disciples of Flying Cloud Cliff were killed. In a few breaths' time, 80% of Flying Cloud Cliff's disciples were killed. At this time, the only 5 quasi-saint on Flying Cloud Cliff finally woke up from their deep seclusion. Kill! They roared and charged toward Fanguo and the rest. However, before they could reach them, Fanguo and the other dozens of quasi-saint struck out their hands at the same time. Bang! One of the quasi-saint only had time to strike out his hand to block the terrifying power. However, he did not even have time to retreat before he was blasted into a cloud of blood mist. Even his godhead was shattered. After all, dozens of quasi-saint attacked at the same time. One could imagine how terrifying their power was. The remaining 4 quasi-saint were scared half to death. They immediately retreated. Kill! Fanguo and the others roared. They locked onto a target and attacked again. On average, each quasi-saint on Flying Cloud Cliff had to face over 10 human quasi-saints. How could they dare to resist? He couldn't resist it either. Immediately, they chose to retreat at the first possible moment. Although they were furious that Fanguo and the others had ambushed them and killed countless Flying Cloud Cliff disciples. However, they didn't want to put themselves in danger. While Fanguo and the others were attacking Flying Cloud Cliff, Murongyu had already sneaked into Flying Cloud Cliff's treasury. Originally, Flying Cloud Cliff's treasury was guarded by a quasi-saint level expert. Quasi-saint's divine telekinesis covered the entire entrance to the treasury. If this continued, Murongyu would not have the opportunity to enter the treasury. They might even be discovered before they even got close. After all, this was quasi-saint. Even with his invisibility ability, he still had to be careful. Under normal circumstances, he might be able to sneak in if he was a little more careful. However, he didn't have the time now. However, the strength of Fanguo and the others was too terrifying. Immediately, the quasi-saint guarding the treasury rushed out. This allowed Murongyu to enter the treasury easily. As a second-tier superpower of the demon race, Flying Cloud Cliff's treasury was the largest and most treasures Murongyu had ever seen. Even the Blood Sect, the Divine Union, and the Shadowless Organization couldn't compare. Ha ha! Flying Cloud Cliff's treasury is better than the Heaven Punisher Palaces. The treasury of the Immortal Palace, the Devil Sect, and the Sacred Sect combined is several times stronger. This trip to the demon race is worth it. Murongyu laughed in his heart. However, he had already taken out the Hichu Luoshu and started to absorb the treasures frantically. Murongyu didn't let go of anything in the treasury, even if it was an ordinary stone. He collected everything. By the time Murongyu emptied the treasury, The energy fluctuations outside had also gradually weakened. In fact, they had even disappeared. The flying cloud cliff must have been completely destroyed. With a thought, Murong Yu appeared outside the treasury. At the moment, Fan Guo and the other human tribe quasi-saint were all floating on the ground. Murong Yu also appeared and stood in the air. The smell of blood was very pungent and unpleasant. When he spread out his spiritual consciousness, he realized that there were no other living people in the entire flying cloud cliff except for the few dozen of them. There were only dead bodies of the demon race. In response, Murong Yu merely looked on with indifference. Many of the disciples below were innocent. However, many factions of the human race had also been massacred by the demon race. Furthermore, once a war between the two races broke out, it wouldn't just be one sect that would die. It would only end when one side was annihilated. No matter what world it is, the powerhouses standing at the top of the pyramid are the ones who dominate everything. There should be at least tens of millions of disciples in the flying cloud cliff, right? However, under the attack of dozens of quasi-saint, they were all killed in less than half a day. Murong Yu thought to himself, and the thought of increasing his strength became more and more intense. Once a war breaks out between the two races, I don't know if this will happen again. Will the quasi-saint from one side kill the gods of the lower realms wantonly, or will they not be able to interfere in the war? While Murong Yu was pondering, Fan Guo and the others had already flown towards the treasury of the flying cloud cliff. Murong Yu followed them silently. At this moment, he wouldn't be honest with them and tell them not to go, because he had already emptied the treasury. As long as it was in Murong Yu's possession, he would never hand it over. Moreover, he wouldn't admit that he was the one who emptied the treasury of the flying cloud cliff. Since dozens of quasi-saint and the flying cloud cliff were wiped out, the formations and restrictions in the treasury of the flying cloud cliff were naturally not a problem for them. Very quickly they broke through them violently. What's going on? An empty treasury? Seeing that the treasury was so clean that not a single pill was left behind, everyone frowned slightly. Could it be that someone from the flying cloud cliff ran away with the treasures? Impossible. This place is so clean that nothing is left behind. Does it look like someone ran away with the treasures in a hurry? A quasi-saint immediately said. Could it be that this isn't the treasury of the flying cloud cliff? Someone frowned and asked. At this moment, Murong Yu was inwardly elated. Since the quasi-saint denied that someone had run away with the treasures in a hurry, he naturally ruled him out. Now, even if Murong Yu said that he was the one who emptied the treasury, they probably wouldn't believe him. This was because even they couldn't move everything in half a day without leaving even a strand of hair behind. Maybe this really isn't the treasury of the flying cloud cliff. Let's go somewhere else to take a look. A quasi-saint said unhappily. Then, he turned around and left. Immediately, the others also left and began to search for the so-called treasury of the flying cloud cliff. However, even if they dug 3 feet into the ground, they still couldn't find the treasury. This was because the flying cloud cliff was the treasury, but it had been emptied by Murong Yu. Maybe the treasury of the flying cloud cliff doesn't have a treasury at all, or maybe it was really taken away by someone. Let's go to another big faction. A quasi-saint looked at Fan Guo. Fan Guo nodded and looked at Murong Yu. Murong Yu pondered for a moment and finally decided to ask Fan Guo and the others for help. Therefore, he said, Uncle, seniors, I want to take away the flying cloud cliff. I wonder if you're willing to help me? Hearing this, everyone looked at Murong Yu in shock. They had never thought of taking away the flying cloud cliff. This was because it was impossible. Especially Fan Guo, the flying cloud cliff was the same as the floating mountain. As the master of the floating mountain, he knew how terrifying the floating mountain was. It was impossible to take it away. Are you confident you can take it? Fan Guo looked at Murong Yu. Murong Yu smiled embarrassedly. How can I be confident? I just want to try. In that case, there's no harm in giving it a try. If you can really take it away, it'll be a good thing. Otherwise, it'll be too easy for the demons. A quasi-saint said. Then I'll thank you seniors in advance. Now I'll bring you out. As he spoke, Morong-yu swept them into the Hichu-Luoshu world, then appeared outside and flew to the sky above the flying cloud cliff. Morong-yu, how do you want to help? Fanguo and the others appeared beside Morong-yu. Seniors, you just need to lend me some of your power temporarily. As he spoke, Morong-yu had already brought out the Hichu-Luoshu. The Hichu-Luoshu expanded with the wind, and under Morong-yu's urging, it quickly enveloped the flying cloud cliff. Seniors, lend me a hand. At this moment, Morong-yu suddenly roared. Fanguo and the others immediately poured their power into Morong-yu's body. During this process, Morong-yu also directly extracted the power of Wenling and the others. As long as he used the swordsman formula to control an expert, Morong-yu could directly borrow their power. Whoosh! The Hichu-Luoshu instantly enlarged, enveloping the entire flying cloud cliff. Withdraw! Morong-yu roared fiercely. Instantly, an incomparably powerful force erupted from the Hichu-Luoshu, enveloping the entire flying cloud cliff. Rumble! The flying cloud cliff fiercely shook, but it was not pulled in. The first attempt had failed. Primal Chaos God Vein, burn for me! Morong-yu roared angrily. Immediately, a huge amount of Primal Chaos God Vein began to burn crazily in the Hichu-Luoshu. Immediately, the suction force of the Hichu-Luoshu began to increase by trillions of times. Withdraw! Morong-yu roared, using all his strength to control the Hichu-Luoshu to withdraw the flying cloud cliff. Under this terrifying suction force, the flying cloud cliff began to shake. At first, it only shook slightly, but later on, the shaking became faster and faster, as if it was about to be uprooted. Chapter 1072. A huge suction force was constantly emitted from the Hichu-Luoshu world, enveloping the entire flying cloud cliff. Under this terrifying suction force, the entire flying cloud cliff began to shake rapidly. However, it seemed that the suction force was not enough. The flying cloud cliff felt like it was being uprooted from the ground, but it was not really uprooted. At the same time, the formations on the flying cloud cliff began to be activated. Beams of divine light constantly erupted, producing a great power that directly resisted the power of the He-2 and the inscription of the Luo, making it even more difficult for the He-2 and the inscription of the Luo to absorb the flying cloud cliff. Morong-yu, speed up, otherwise the experts of the demon clan will hear the news and come here soon. At this moment, Fanguo's voice rang in Morong-yu's ears. Morong-yu felt helpless. Now, whether it was his own strength, borrowing the strength of others, or even directly burning the power of the endless chaotic divine veins, these had reached the peak of what he could use. If it still did not work, he would have to give up the flying cloud cliff. Everyone, lend me a hand again. Morong-yu roared and decided to try again. If it still did not work, he would have to give up. The power of many quasi-saint burst out and poured into Morong-yu's body. With everyone's ultimate strength, the suction force of the Hichu-Luoshu became even stronger. However, the flying cloud cliff was still rumbling, but it was not uprooted. Perhaps the flying cloud cliff was too heavy, or perhaps the formations on the flying cloud cliff were too strong. Do I have to give up? Morong-yu felt helpless and finally gave up. If dozens of quasi-saint strength is not enough, do I need hundreds of quasi-saint strength? But there are too many quasi-saints, and it exceeds my limit. I can't borrow their strength at all. Morong-yu felt depressed and took Fanguo and the others into the Hichu-Luoshu world. Just as Morong-yu entered the Hichu-Luoshu and was about to leave, Hichu suddenly said, "Maybe there is another way." "What is it?" Morong-yu immediately asked. He was determined to obtain this flying cloud cliff. If not for the fact that there was no other way, he would not have given up. Lu Haotsong. He's an imperishable stage saint. If he's willing to help, a mere flying cloud cliff is nothing. Murong Yu was puzzled. You also know that he's an imperishable stage sage. There was no way the God realm could contain him. If he appeared here, I'm afraid the entire flying cloud cliff would be shattered. When he said this, a light suddenly flashed through his mind. If Lu Haotsang is in the Hichu Luoshu world, don't even think about it. When he entered Hichu Luoshu, the Hichu Luoshu itself would not be harmed. However, the space inside the Hichu Luoshu would definitely be shattered and return to chaos. Once it returns to chaos, it's impossible for you to recreate the world with your current strength. Moreover, even if you can create it, all the previous teleportation points and other things will disappear. Murong Yu was depressed, but after a while, he appeared in the chaotic secret land. Boy, don't tell me you're going to break through again this time? As soon as Murong Yu appeared, Lu Haotsang, who had nothing to do, noticed him and went directly to Murong Yu's side. Murong Yu shook his head. No, I want to borrow something from you this time. What? I don't have anything now. Lu Haotsang looked at Murong Yu in confusion, not knowing what he wanted to borrow. Power. Lu Haotsang laughed. How can I lend you my power? Besides, even if I lend it to you, you won't be able to bear it. I just need you to reach the level of a false saint. Help me collect something. Murong Yu said lightly. How? You don't want me to help you kill people, do you? I won't help you with your grievances. I can kill my enemies myself. I don't need you. It's just collecting something. Now you can condense the power of a false saint and hide in the Hichu Luoshu world. When the time comes, help me collect it. The strength of a false saint. You're really greedy. In this godforsaken place, even exhaling a breath is a waste. The power of a false saint is too great. Murong Yu looked at Lu Haotsang. If you want to stay here forever, you don't have to give it to me. A threat. It was definitely a threat. However, it just so happened to threaten Lu Haotsang's weakness. It had always been Lu Haotsang's wish to leave the chaotic secret land and return to the holy world. And the only person who could help him achieve this wish was Murong Yu. If Murong Yu really didn't take him away, he could only stay here forever. Immediately, Lu Haotsang laughed and said quickly, Isn't it just the power of a false saint? I'll give it to you. As he spoke, Lu Haotsang immediately condensed a power clone with the strength of a false saint. Murong Yu smiled faintly and immediately entered the Hichu Luoshu. At the same time, he took Lu Haotsang's power clone. The next moment, he appeared above the flying cloud cliff. Old Lu, your task is to capture the flying cloud cliff and bring it to the Hichu Luoshu world. Murong Yu said to Lu Haotsang's clone with a smile. Because Lu Haotsang left a divine thought in the power clone, it was the same as his original body. Immediately, he frowned and said, No matter how many false saints there are, they can't capture the flying cloud cliff, let alone a quasi-saint. Unless it's a real saint. Murong Yu's brows slightly wrinkled, but he quickly let it go. If it weren't for this, the flying cloud cliff and the floating mountain would have been smashed by the false saints in the divine world long ago. Old Lu, I know you have a way. I'll leave this task to you. Murong Yu just looked at Lu Haotsang with a smile. If I unleash the strength of a saint, I can capture the flying cloud cliff. If it was under normal circumstances, it wouldn't matter at all. But now, every bit of power consumed is consumed, and it can't be replenished. Seeing that Lu Haotsang was about to go on, Murong Yu directly interrupted him. It seems that someone doesn't want to go back to the holy world. You're ruthless. I'll help you get the flying cloud cliff now. After being threatened by Murong Yu, Lu Haotsang finally decided to help Murong Yu regardless of the consumption of power. Anyway, even if he had no power, he wouldn't die. Of course, the premise was that his physical body didn't collapse. Boy, after I make a move, this power clone will collapse. You must remember to take me out of the chaotic secret plane. Lu Haotsang shouted in a low voice, and at the same time, his aura began to rise. False saint. Boom. Just as his aura rose to that of a sage, the space within he too and Luo Shu that he was in began to collapse in large areas. Moreover, this collapse was different from ordinary collapse. After the collapse, it was not repaired, but began to transform into pieces of chaos. Lu Haozong also knew that the Hichu Luoshu world couldn't bear the power of a saint. Therefore, he didn't talk nonsense, and directly stretched out his big hand from the Hichu Luoshu. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Lu Haozong's method was very simple. He merely used his palm to chop Fei Yunyan up, down, left and right a few times. However, Murong Yu watched as the void was directly split apart, turning into a mass of primal chaos. At this time, the flying cloud cliff was like a mountain wrapped in endless chaos, and was directly isolated from the divine world. In this way, without the support of the divine world, the flying cloud cliff's formation couldn't be activated no matter how powerful it was. Whoosh! Lu Haozong stretched out his big hand and directly grabbed the entire flying cloud cliff. At the same time, Murong Yu also took out the Hichu Luoshu. The Hichu Luoshu expanded with the wind, and very quickly, it covered the sky and earth, opening up a hole even bigger than the flying cloud cliff. With a whoosh, the flying cloud cliff was pulled into the Hichu Luoshu world by Lu Haozong. The moment the flying cloud cliff entered the Hichu Luoshu, Lu Haozong's strength clone also collapsed instantly. The space in the Hichu Luoshu couldn't hold on for much longer, because in just a moment, 1/10 of the space in the Hichu Luoshu had already returned to chaos. With Murong Yu's current strength, it would take an extremely long time to repair this 1/10 of the space that had returned to chaos. And this was because repairing was millions of times easier than creating. Boom! When the flying cloud cliff fell into the Hichu Luoshu, the entire Hichu Luoshu couldn't help but tremble. One could imagine how heavy the flying cloud cliff was. Although the bottom of the flying cloud cliff could be wrapped around by a person, the top of the cliff was like a small continent. It was similar to the primordial wilderness continent. With Murong Yu's current strength, it wasn't impossible for him to move the entire primordial wilderness continent into the Hichu Luoshu. Moreover, the primordial wilderness continent wasn't so heavy. However, the flying cloud cliff was the same as the floating mountain. It was different from ordinary continents. Therefore, even with the strength of dozens of quasi-saints combined, they couldn't move it. What's going on? Is it under attack? The violent tremors of the Hichu Luoshu were felt by everyone in the Hichu Luoshu world. However, although they were puzzled, the Hichu Luoshu world was very big. Moreover, without Murong Yu's permission, they couldn't move around freely. Therefore, they didn't see the flying cloud cliff being taken in at all. Quasi-saint, is the difference between a false saint and a saint so big? Murong Yu was a little shocked at this moment. This was the first time he saw a saint in action. A false saint couldn't do anything to the flying cloud cliff, but a saint could take it in with a single move. The difference was too big, and Lu Haozong had only slightly exposed the strength of a saint. That was only the lowest level of a saint. What if he was in the imperishable realm? What if he was in the Supremes or even the Sovereigns? How powerful were they? As for the legendary Chaos Controller, what kind of strength did he possess? Murong Yu was shocked. At the same time, he was even more determined to become a saint. Chapter 1073. Murong Yu, what happened just now? Was your divine artifact under attack? If there aren't many Goblin clan enemies, we can attack. After Murong Yu appeared, Fangua asked through telepathy. The others also looked over. Murong Yu faintly smiled and said, "It's nothing. I've just taken in the flying cloud cliff." What? Took the flying cloud cliff in? Murong Yu's words were like a boulder that had been thrown into a calm lake, causing huge waves to erupt. They had all seen it with their own eyes. The combined strength of dozens of quasi-saints could only shake the flying cloud cliff slightly. Yet, Murong Yu had managed to take the soaring cloud cliff in less than half a day without them even making a move? Who was helping him? Could it be that there was a real saint behind him? Only a real saint would have such strength. Perhaps there were hundreds or even more quasi-saints behind Murong Yu. Perhaps there were so many people who could take the flying cloud cliff. However, if Murong Yu had so many quasi-saints, why did he not expose them? With so many saints, it was enough for him to run amok in the realm of the gods. Then, there was only one possibility. There was a saint behind him. Could it be the saint from Primeval College? Everyone looked at Murong Yu with doubtful eyes. With Murong Yu's talent and performance, it was possible that the Primeval College was behind him. If it was not the saint from Primeval College, who was the saint behind Murong Yu? No matter who it was, there was a high chance that there was a saint behind Murong Yu. This person must not be offended. This thought appeared in the minds of many quasi-saints. Some of the people who originally had strange thoughts put away their strange thoughts at that moment. Looking at everyone's expressions, Murong Yu knew what was going on. He did not explain and let these people speculate. "Uncle, which force will we be facing next?" "Red Lunar Prison," Fangua said indifferently. At the same time, he left Hichu Luoshu. The Red Lunar Prison was as powerful as the Flying Cloud Cliff. It was a super force in the second tier of the Demon Clan. However, it was extremely far away from Flying Cloud Cliff. In the demon race's territory, there were very few teleportation points that Murong Yu could use, so he could only rely on Fangua to travel. While Fangua was rushing to Red Lunar Prison, the news that Flying Cloud Cliff had been completely destroyed, and that even Flying Cloud Cliff had been taken away spread like wildfire among the demon race. Then, the news spread throughout the human territory and the entire god realm. What's the situation? Who was it that destroyed a force like Flying Cloud Cliff? Who has the ability to uproot the Flying Cloud Cliff? For a moment, countless people in the god realm were filled with doubt. On the other hand, the demon race suspected that it was the doing of a human expert. This was revenge for their decapitation. However, while the Flying Cloud Cliff was easy to destroy, the Flying Cloud Cliff was difficult to take away. Especially for the demons, they were even more terrifying than Flying Cloud Cliff. Even a false saint would not be able to collect it. Who was it that took away Flying Cloud Cliff? Could it be that the higher-ups had taken it away? Or was it destroyed by a saint? This was because everyone in Flying Cloud Cliff had been killed. Not even a chicken or a dog was spared. Other than those who were no longer at Flying Cloud Cliff that day. No one knew who had destroyed Flying Cloud Cliff. Just as everyone was guessing and discussing, Murong Yu and the rest appeared outside Red Lunar Prison. There was nothing special about Red Lunar Prison's location. It was similar to an ordinary sect, and there were no layers of formations like Flying Cloud Cliff. Therefore, Fangua led Hichu Luoshu and rushed forward. "Kill!" Fangua bellowed out as he punched out with his fist. A terrifying power burst out and almost annihilated the defenseless Red Lunar Prison. If not for the fact that there were many formations in Red Lunar Prison that would automatically activate after being attacked. Otherwise, Fangua's punch would have razed the entire Red Lunar Prison to the ground. During this process, the other dozens of Quasi-Saint came out of Hichu Luoshu and attacked crazily the moment they came out. Murong Yu still did not come out. Regarding this, the other Quasi-Saint did not say anything. After all, he was only a heavenly king. Not only would he not be able to help, but he would also be a burden to them. Swoosh. After everyone left, Murong Yu began to search for Red Lunar Prison's treasure vault. Not long after, Murong Yu found Red Lunar Prison's treasure vault. The people guarding the treasure vault had all left, and those formations were useless against Murong Yu. Therefore, Murong Yu swaggered into Red Lunar Prison's treasure vault. Compared to Flying Cloud Cliff, Red Lunar Prison's treasure vault was not that big, and there were not many things inside. However, it was still very shocking. Without saying a word, Morong Yu took out Hichu Luoshu and began to collect it. Half a day later, the battle outside ended. Out of the 6 quasi-saint in Red Lunar Prison, 5 were killed, and 1 quasi-saint was severely injured. He opened a secret teleportation formation in Red Lunar Prison and escaped. Other than the quasi-saint who escaped, none of the disciples in Red Lunar Prison escaped. They were all killed. Blood flowed like a river, and corpses were everywhere. The entire Red Lunar Prison was almost razed to the ground. Swoosh! Morong Yu walked out of the treasure vault. At this time, Fanguor and the rest were already attacking the formation of the treasure vault. He appeared from the void behind and strode forward. Red Lunar Prison's treasure vault should have many good things, right? Morong Yu stood beside Fan Shao and said to him, Red Lunar Prison has 1 more quasi-saint than Flying Cloud Cliff, so the treasure vault should be more than Flying Cloud Cliff. However, the last time, the Flying Cloud Cliff's treasury was emptied. Will the same thing happen this time? Morong Yu frowned. I don't think so. If that's the case, then it's really strange. As he said this, Morong Yu was secretly laughing. He had emptied Red Lunar Prison's treasure vault long ago. While they were talking, the group had already worked together to break the countless formations and restrictions in Red Lunar Prison's treasure vault. However, when they entered the treasury, each and every one of their faces turned ashen. There's really nothing? It's so clean. Could it be that the demon clan's treasure vault is just for show? Morong Yu frowned and said, Strange. Who exactly emptied the treasure vault? If Red Lunar Prison knew about it in advance, they would not have been defenseless. The entire sect would have been wiped out. Could it be that Morong Yu was right? Or could it be that the sage behind Morong Yu was the one who did it? However, it shouldn't be. If it was a sage, he could have taken the treasure vault openly. Why would he need to be so sneaky? Or rather, the sage actually wasn't sneaking around. It was just that they didn't discover it. If it was really a sage, then this sage was always by Morong Yu's side. Was this to protect him? No wonder Morong Yu didn't have any quasi-saint by his side. It turned out that there was a sage secretly protecting him. In fact, what they didn't know was that there was no sage behind Morong Yu. As for Shengzhen's quasi-saint, Wen Ling and the others were hiding in Hichu Luoshu. After all, it was so dangerous this time. Among these dozens of people, only the Fan family had a better relationship with him. He didn't have much of a relationship with the others. These people might stab him in the back. Therefore, before coming to the demon-desolate continent, Su Hao returned to Shengzhen and brought Wen Ling and the other quasi-saint with him in case of emergencies. However, if Morong Yu knew what they were thinking, he would definitely laugh himself to death. He would definitely be even more unscrupulous. However, at this moment, he also pretended to be extremely depressed. Since Red Lunar Prison had already been destroyed, the treasure vault had also been emptied. And Red Lunar Prison wasn't as valuable as Flying Cloud Cliff. Therefore, everyone left very quickly. After a long time, the news of Red Lunar Prison being destroyed spread. In just a short period of time, the second super force was destroyed. After the news spread, many super forces of the demon race became vigilant. And this was completely useless. Not long after Red Lunar Prison was destroyed, Sky-Bearing Island, which was also a second-tier super force of the demon race, was also destroyed. While the demons were shocked, Fanguor and the others were even more depressed. Because after destroying Sky-Bearing Island this time, the treasure vault of Sky-Bearing Island was still emptied. And this time, there was still a quasi-saint who went to monitor Sky-Bearing Island's treasure vault before making a move. But it was useless. They couldn't find out who emptied the treasure vault at all. They destroyed 5 second-tier super forces in a row. However, in the following period of time, Fanguo and the others had no choice but to stop. This was because when they destroyed the 4th super force, their quasi-saint was already severely injured. Moreover, a few quasi-saint were almost destroyed. This was because the super forces were already on their guard. They built many transportation circles between the super forces. Once they were attacked, the quasi-saint of the other super forces rushed over immediately. Moreover, these super forces had set up even more formations. Because of this, almost all of Fangua's quasi-saint died. Moreover, what made them most depressed was that after destroying 5 super forces in a row, the treasure vaults of the 5 super forces were emptied. They didn't even have a single hair. Since they couldn't continue to destroy the super forces, they started to destroy the third-tier super forces. There weren't many experts in these super forces, so they were easily killed. At this moment, Fangua and the others' actions had already shocked the entire realm of gods. Especially the demon race, they were furious. The beheadings intensified, and countless human experts died. A war between the humans was about to break out. The beheadings were still being carried out to warn the others and intimidate them. However, the more they did so, the more furious the two clans were. There were even many normal human and demon experts who crossed the boundless territory of both sides and entered each other's territory to kill each other directly. The realm of gods was in chaos. At this moment, Murong Yu and the others were preparing to return. After all, the world was in chaos. They had to go back to reorganize their forces and prepare for war. Murong Yu naturally had no objection to their decision. This was because he had gained the most from this trip. Moreover, Shenzhen needed him to go back and take charge. As long as Shenzhen moved to Flying Cloud Cliff, at least in this war, Shenzhen would be able to hold on until the end. Chapter 1074. The atmosphere in the immortal realm was extremely tense. Whether it was the human race or the demon race, there would be battles that were more frequent than before. Some of them were humans slaughtering demons, while some were demons crazily attacking humans in human territory. However, there were also people or forces who were taking advantage of the situation to create chaos. In short, this was a chaotic world. Perhaps some of the top forces in the human or demon race in the immortal realm were already planning to start a civil war. However, all of this had nothing to do with Murong Yu. If there was a war between the two races, he would definitely participate. However, now was not the time. At this moment, he had already returned to the Saint City. The Flying Cloud Cliff was a small continent, but it was extremely huge. It was even bigger than the Yen Huang Immortal Realm. Moreover, when Lu Haotsong took the Flying Cloud Cliff, he did not destroy any of the spirit designs or restrictions on the Flying Cloud Cliff. Therefore, besides being very safe, the Flying Cloud Cliff did not have to worry about the heaven and earth Yuan Qi. Just like the floating mountain, the Flying Cloud Cliff would automatically absorb the heaven and earth Yuan Qi from the surroundings. Rumble. Because the quasi-saint was in charge of the Saint City, there was no chaos. Those who needed to do things continued to do things, and those who needed to cultivate continued to cultivate. All of a sudden, a loud bang was heard, following which the entire Saint City, and even the land within hundreds of millions of miles around the Saint City, started to tremble. It was as though the heavens and earth were falling apart. In an instant, countless people thought that the world had changed and rushed out. It was as though day had turned into night. Although it was not so dark that they could not see their fingers in front of them. However, it was still as dark as night. However, everyone knew that it was only early in the morning at this time. What's going on? Is it really the end of the world? Everyone looked at each other. Then, they felt as if a huge mountain was floating above their heads, and a huge pressure shrouded their hearts. At this moment, the sky that was as dark as night gradually brightened. Everyone looked up and saw an inverted cone standing between the heavens and the earth. It grew bigger and bigger, and finally formed an endless continent above the clouds. What is this? Many people were puzzled. At this moment, a voice suddenly rang in their ears. As if it knew what they were thinking, the voice immediately answered, "This is the treasure of the Flying Cloud Cliff, one of the top forces of the demon clan. Flying Cloud Cliff. From then on, it will belong to Shenzhen, and its name will be changed to Holy Mountain. Murong Yu stood at the edge of the flying cloud cliff, or rather the edge of the holy city. He looked down at the vast expanse of heaven and earth with a solemn expression. For many people, they had no idea what kind of power Flying Cloud Cliff was and how terrifying it was. But when they heard Murong Yu mention the top forces and saw the majestic aura of the sacred mountain, just this alone was enough to intimidate countless people. And Shenzhen's people were even more delighted. From today onwards, all disciples of Shenzhen will move to the holy city to live and cultivate. This will be the sacred mountain of Shenzhen, and also the sacred mountain of the entire God realm. Murong Yu's voice once again spread far and wide. At the same time, the higher-ups of Shenzhen, such as Zhang Ao and Duan Muqing, also appeared. Near them was the teleportation portal to the sacred mountain. As for people like Zhao Jiqing, Wen Ling, and the others, they naturally wouldn't show their faces in public to do these things. Disciples of Shenzhen, after you pack up all your belongings, you can go to the sacred mountain through the teleportation portal, Zhang Ao shouted loudly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Before Zhang Ao's voice fell, countless disciples of Shenzhen had already rushed out. As gods, their belongings were usually in their storage rings. Therefore, there was nothing to pack. One by one, they disappeared into the teleportation portal, and Shenzhen's disciples continued to appear on the sacred mountain. Wow! The sacred mountain scenery is so beautiful, it's just like a continent. Also, the heaven-earth origin energy here is many times denser than in the sacred mountain. It's simply a holy land for cultivation. This was the first time that those who set foot on the sacred mountain exclaimed. When these people were teleporting to the sacred mountain, Wen Ling and the others also took action. They used their great magical powers and directly moved many of the arrangements to the sacred mountain. For example, the secret grounds array and various other facilities. In less than half a day, the entire Shenzhen's people had all retreated to the sacred mountain. Of course, the sacred mountain still belonged to Shenzhen. Therefore, countless people who heard the news just stood outside the sacred mountain and watched Shenzhen's disciples disappear into the teleportation portal one by one. It was unknown whether it was done on purpose or not, but the various praises of Shenzhen's disciples on the sacred mountain were clearly heard, causing countless gods to be envious. Shenzhen already has a quasi-saint level expert, and now they even have a sacred mountain. It's both safe and suitable for cultivation. If only I could become Shenzhen's disciple. Unfortunately, Shenzhen's standards are too high. Someone said with a look of regret. You just want to get benefits from Shenzhen, so naturally you won't pass their test. In my opinion, Shenzhen's standards for disciples are the lowest. As long as you are loyal to Shenzhen, no matter how strong or weak you are, or what your aptitude is, you can become their disciple. It's just that, how do they determine if a person is loyal to Shenzhen? Someone asked puzzledly. If I knew, would I still be standing here? I would already be in the sacred mountain. That person said with a black face. Now that Shenzhen's people have moved to the sacred mountain, there shouldn't be anyone willing to cultivate in the sacred mountain. I wonder if Shenzhen will leave the sacred mountain empty, or what? Everyone, from today onwards, the sacred mountain is open to the entire God realm. As long as you pay a certain amount of resources, you can live and do business in the sacred mountain. Of course, the prerequisite is that you can't cause trouble in the sacred mountain, and must abide by the rules and regulations of the sacred mountain. Those who want to live and cultivate in the sacred mountain, now go find Shenzhen's disciple to settle the check-in procedures. Murong Yu's voice once again spread far and wide. There's actually such a good thing? Hearing Murong Yu's words, everyone was slightly surprised. This was because they all knew that the sacred mountain also had a spirit gathering array, and the heaven and earth origin energy was many times denser than outside the sacred mountain. They didn't think that Murong Yu would actually open the sacred mountain. Sacred Master, if we live in the sacred mountain, Will Shenzhen provide us with protection? A loud voice suddenly spread, suppressing all the voices present. As long as you abide by Shenzhen's rules and regulations, as long as you are a resident of the sacred mountain, our Shenzhen will provide protection. Murong Yu's voice spread far and wide. Then what are we still waiting for? I want to live in the sacred mountain. A heavenly emperor realm powerhouse roared angrily, unfolding his figure and pouncing toward Shenzhen. It was just that there were still quite a few people faster than him. However, although these people were in a mess, they were careful, not daring to destroy a single flower or blade of grass in the sacred mountain. If they were rejected by Shenzhen because of this, then they would regret it to death. Everyone, although the sacred mountain is only opening up half of the area this time. But there are enough seats. So everyone, don't snatch. Seeing the deities flocking over, Shenzhen and the rest of those people who stayed here to handle the procedures for them were all about to burst into laughter. The sacred mountain was not opening up the sacred mountain to them for free. Want to survive here? Then they would have to spend money to buy a place. Different places had different prices. Furthermore, other than this, they also had to pay resources to Shenzhen at fixed intervals. Actually, Shenzhen was like renting out the sacred mountain. One could imagine that in the future there would be resources rolling in every day. This was also considered one of Shenzhen's businesses. The sacred mountain was huge. The headquarters of the Divine Union was already big enough, but Shenzhen had expanded it quite a bit during this period of time. Therefore, even though only half of the city was opened up, less than half of the people stayed in it. However, when this news spread, even more people would stay in the sacred mountain in the future. At the same time, the news that the Flying Cloud Cliff had become Shenzhen's sacred mountain had also spread. No matter who it was, they were all shocked, especially the powerful existences. Those who were well aware of the terror of Soaring Cloud Cliff were even more shocked by Murong Yu's generosity. The Flying Cloud Cliff actually fell into Shenzhen's hands. Where did Murong Yu get his strength from? When the news spread to the demon race, information about Murong Yu and Shenzhen was also presented to some big shot. Could it be that Murong Yu is being watched by the higher-ups? Was Flying Cloud Cliff also taken away by the higher-ups? Countless people were puzzled. More and more people suspected that there was a saint behind Su Hao. It was precisely because of this that many people became wary of Shenzhen. This mentality made the demons not dare to touch Shenzhen for a long time when humans and demons were in an all-out war. Murong Yu. Countless big shots of Abyssal College gritted their teeth. They were already unhappy with Murong Yu to begin with, and if there was really a saint behind Murong Yu, no matter how unhappy they were, they could only swallow it. While everyone's eyes were focused on Murong Yu, guessing if there was a saint behind him, Murong Yu, and even the entire Shenzhen, entered a cultivation frenzy. Shenzhen was still too weak. Although there was the Holy Mountain, if the war between the two races started, with Shenzhen's strength, it would still be difficult to preserve it. Therefore, he needed to increase the strength of Shenzhen's disciples. Because he had emptied the treasure vaults of many large factions of the demon race, such as Flying Cloud Cliff, Shenzhen's resources couldn't be calculated with numbers at all. Comprehension pills were constantly being produced. At the same time, batch after batch of Shenzhen's experts were constantly taken into the Hichu Luoshu world by Murong Yu. He activated time acceleration and crazily increased their strength. Heaven Lord, Heavenly King, Heavenly Emperor, and even Primordial God Realm. The strength of Shenzhen's disciples increased rapidly. And on this day, the war between the two races finally erupted. The demons directly declared war on the humans, and the humans had no choice but to accept the battle. Otherwise, the demon army would directly surge into the human territory and kill until blood flowed like rivers in the human territory. The people would have no way to live. And if they accepted the battlefield wouldn't be in the human territory or the demon territory, but Chapter 1075. The Eastern Wilderness was neither in the human nor the goblin race's territory. It was the third large continent in the godly realm. Other than them, the humans and the goblin race were the two largest continents in the godly realm. The Eastern Wilderness was extremely far away from the humans and the goblin race. However, there were many teleportation portals and even wormholes that connected them. According to the legends, the Eastern Wilderness was lacking in the chi of heaven and earth. It was even thinner than the Provenance continent. Therefore, there were no true gods living in the Eastern Wilderness. Moreover, there were no secret sites or relics here. For a long time, the Eastern Wasteland had been desolate, and very few people came here. This was the battlefield between the humans and the goblin race. It was only after one side was defeated that the victorious side would march straight into the other side's territory and completely annihilate them. Therefore, after the goblin race issued a challenge to the humans, the goblin race's army was teleported over and stationed at one end of the Eastern Wilderness. The Celestial Palace was the absolute ruler of the goblin race. When the war was launched, the Celestial Palace had already commanded the entire goblin race. Countless forces within the goblin race's territory were under the command of the Celestial Palace. Countless experts became the subordinates of the Celestial Palace and were teleported to the Eastern Wilderness. When the goblin race arrived at the Eastern Wilderness, the human warriors were teleported over as well. The 4 continents of the human race were ruled by the 4 great academies. This time, the 4 great academies were still the highest commanders. However, there would always be only one person in command. For some unknown reason, the Infinite Wilderness, the Great Wilderness and the Savage Academy all handed over the command to the Eldritch Continent. And they became the highest-level existences under the commanders, commanding the experts of the continents under their command. An all-out war broke out. Countless experts were teleported to the Eastern Wasteland. However, the Eastern Wasteland was simply too big. Even though countless experts were teleported over, they only occupied the tip of the iceberg. Humans, Saint City. Under the orders of the highest commander of the human race, Shenzhen immediately sent experts to the Eastern Wilderness to participate in the war. No one is allowed to disobey. An expert from the front lines entered Shenzhen, left behind an order, and then left. Other than Shenzhen, all the forces in the God realm had received this order. After receiving the order, most of the forces immediately brought their disciples to the front lines and joined the Eastern Wilderness. However, some forces did not make any moves, such as Shenzhen. Holy Mountain, inside the Holy Palace. The upper echelons of Shenzhen, including Wenling and the others, were all gathered together. However, in the Holy Temple, the seat that symbolized the highest position was empty. That was the seat of Sect Master Shenzhen, Morong Yu. However, Morong Yu did not appear here. He was in seclusion, trying to break through to the next realm. Everyone, now that the war between the two races has broken out, our Shenzhen has also received orders. What do you think? Morong Yu was not here, so the one in charge of the overall situation was, of course, Zhao Jiqing. The war between the two races concerns the future of the human race. It is our duty to participate in the war. Immediately, someone said. Zhao Jiqing looked over and saw that the person who spoke was Morong Xian. We have to participate in the war and contribute our strength. However, our Shenzhen's overall strength is not strong. Although there are 10 quasi-saints in the war, 10 quasi-saints' strength is not outstanding. The most important thing is still the strength of an ordinary disciple. Although some of our disciples in Shenzhen have reached the immemorial God realm, and there are also quite a number of heavenly Emperor realm disciples. However, in the face of an army of trillions of demons, our strength is just a drop of water in the ocean. We can't do anything. Moreover, if we are not careful, we will all be killed. Moreover, if we go to the Eastern Wilderness now, we will definitely be cannon fodder. Therefore, we have to participate in the war. However, now is not the time. We have to wait for the Holy Lord to come out of seclusion before making a decision. Yang Qin stepped forward and said in a low voice. A quasi-saint, even a 10th-level quasi-saint, would not be able to withstand a single blow in the face of trillions of powerhouses. Moreover, at the beginning of the war, the quasi-saint would definitely not be allowed to participate in the war directly. Without the quasi-saint's protection, many of the Shenzhen's disciples would only be cannon fodder. We have to participate in the war, and we have to participate now. A voice sounded, and then a figure flashed in front of everyone's eyes. The seat that symbolized the highest authority and status in Shenzhen was already occupied by a person. It was Murongyu. But Yang Qin wanted to say something, but before she could finish, she was interrupted by Murongyu. Although our Shenzhen's strength is not enough, if we participate in the war now, we don't have to go to the front lines. Fighting is the best way to raise one's cultivation. Moreover, there are many benefits to participating in the war now. Everyone looked at Murongyu in confusion. Right now, Primeval College is the leader of the human race, and the other 3 colleges have the highest authority other than Primeval College. Therefore, they have the most resources. However, don't forget that our Shenzhen has 10 quasi-saint. With this lineup, we can obtain a decent position in the human race's army. Under such circumstances, having more people did not necessarily mean that one's position would be high. One's position was determined by the number of powerhouses they had. Perhaps Abyssal College had more quasi-saint than Shenzhen, but Shenzhen's true combat strength was not weak. After quasi-saint, 1/3 of Shenzhen's disciples will go to the eastern wilderness. 10,000 years later, it will be the other 1/3's turn. Murongyu glanced at everyone and said in a low voice. The large-scale war this time was definitely not something that could end in tens of thousands of years. It was even possible for it to last for a few eras. Wenling, the 10 of you, follow me. Murongyu glanced at the 10 of them, then put them into the Hichu Luoshu world. This is the heavenly region? When Wenling and the other 2 stepped on solid ground again, they were shocked to discover that they had re-entered the heavenly region. That's right. With my breakthrough this time, I can already control more quasi-saint. Only then did everyone look over, only to see that Murongyu had already broken through to the peak of the heavenly emperor realm. All 3 divine deities had reached the peak of the heavenly emperor realm. All these years, when Su Hao's time accelerated to increase the strength of Shenzhen's disciples, his own strength also increased. The space divine deity and lightning divinity were both raised by Murongyu using the power of chaos. Holy Master, are we going to attack directly in Heavenly Region City? Yang Qin asked. At this moment it was night in Heavenly Region City. All the quasi-saint were in the city. Control 2 level 10 quasi-saint first. Murongyu nodded, then re-entered the Hichu Luoshu world with everyone. Under the guidance of Wenling and the others, Hichu Luoshu floated into the courtyard of a level 10 quasi-saint before long. This quasi-saint's name was Shintuhai. He was one of Wenling's friends. After Wenling was controlled by Murongyu, everything he did now was with Murongyu as the center. Therefore, when he found out about Murongyu's thoughts, he decided to come over and subdue Shintuhai. Attack! When Hichu Luoshu approached Shintuhai, Murongyu immediately released Wenling and the others. The 10 of them were already prepared in the Hichu Luoshu world. The moment they appeared, they exploded with their strongest attacks towards Shintuhai. Of course, they were all controlling skills. After all, they were not here to kill. Shintuhai, who was originally cultivating with his eyes closed, reacted the moment Wenling and the others appeared. However, the attacks of Wenling and the others had already drowned him. Wenling, what are you doing? Shintuhai felt that he had been imprisoned, and his strength had been sealed. He could not help but shout in anger. Sending you out of heavenly region. Wenling shouted and rushed to Shintuhai's side. He slapped Shintuhai's head. Immediately, Shintu Hai's vision turned black and he fainted. Shwa. In less than 5 breaths of time, a level 10 quasi-saint was subdued. It was not that Shintu Hai was too weak, but that the experts on Wenling's side were too strong. Although a level 10 quasi-saint was much stronger than a level 9 quasi-saint. However, Wenling and Yang Qin were both level 10 quasi-saint, together with the other 8 quasi-saint, and a sneak attack at that, unless Shintu Hai was a saint, he would not be able to escape. Holy Lord! In Hichu Luoshu, when Shintu Hai woke up, he first looked at everyone, then respectfully bowed to Murongyu. Murongyu nodded and looked at Wenling. Thus, Wenling directly sent a ray of divine light into Shintu Hai's memory. Immediately, Shintu Hai knew everything in detail. What a guy! You can actually leave heavenly region, but you didn't come to find me. You're too mean. After knowing everything, Shintu Hai glared at Wenling. All right, the next target is Yang Qin's friend, Zhuoqiu Qin. As he spoke, Wenling and the others had already been released by Murongyu. Zhuoqiu Qin, a level 10 quasi-saint, was even stronger than Yang Qin. In fact, she had already been alerted before Yang Qin and the others appeared. However, it was useless. Wenling, Yang Qin, and Shintu Hai were all level 10 quasi-saint, and there were still 8 other quasi-saint. 11 people acted at the same time, and restrained Zhuoqiu Qin before she could retaliate. Another level 10 quasi-saint. At this point, Murongyu had already controlled 4 level 10 quasi-saint. However, with Murongyu's current strength, controlling 4 level 10 quasi-saint was already his limit. However, controlling quasi-saint of other realms was not a problem. Thus, Murongyu controlled 4 level 9 quasi-saint, and 4 level 8 quasi-saint. 20 quasi-saint, 4 of which were level 10 quasi-saint, and the weakest was level 7 quasi-saint. Shengzhen's strength rose sharply again. Chapter 1076. The eastern wilderness was divided into 2 large regions. The north was occupied by the humans, while the south was occupied by the demons. The empty space between the 2 races was the battlefield. However, it was still empty at the moment. The 2 races were still in the process of gathering their forces. Once they finished gathering their forces, the most tragic battle would begin. The human encampment had long since been cultivated into large cities. The 4 largest cities were Eldritch, Tianhuang, Manhuang, and Dahuang. Among them, Eldritch City was the city with the highest authority. Almost all of the upper echelons of the human army were gathered here. In the spacious hall, the human commander, the dean of Primeval College, and a quasi-ranker, Yuan Yuan, sat on the chair that symbolized the highest status and position. On both sides of the hall sat some of the top powers of the human race. These people formed the upper echelons of the human army. At the moment, they were gathered together to discuss the war and the distribution of resources. Abyssal College and the other 2 colleges, as well as the Fan family and other superpowers, were all present. At this moment, a group of 5 people shot over from afar, landing at the entrance of the hall and walking straight in. Who dares to be so impudent? Is this a place where just anyone can come in? A bad-tempered ranker in the hall shouted angrily. At the same time, his sage-to-be aura burst out and rushed towards the few people who were striding in from the door. How impressive! Who do you think you are? How dare you order us around again? When Ling stepped forward, and Quasi-Saint level 10 aura burst out. It tore through the void like a storm and rushed towards the Quasi-Saint. Bang! In an instant, the chair that the Quasi-Saint was sitting on was shattered. His entire body was sent flying backwards by the impact. In the process, he violently coughed up blood. How dare you! How dare you! Seeing this, some of the people in the hall were enraged. This was because only the most powerful people in the human army were qualified to enter. Since this person had only just arrived, it was obvious that he was not qualified. Moreover, the intruder injured the Quasi-Saint in the main hall as soon as he appeared. How could they not be furious? What the hell is this? Could it be that you want to bully me with numbers? Shin Tu-hai sneered and took a step forward to stand with Wenling 10th Order Quasi-Saint's aura also erupted, sweeping forward. At the same time, Yang Qin and Zhuoqiu behind Murong Yu erupted with the might of a 10th rank Quasi-Saint. In an instant, the auras of 4 10th rank Quasi-Saints enveloped the entire hall. Incomparably terrifying. Everyone, you don't seem to welcome me? Or is it that I, Murong Yu, am not qualified to enter this hall? Murong Yu glanced at everyone and said with a smile. 4 10th Order Quasi-Saint. Everyone present was shocked. Didn't Murong Yu only have 2 10th Order Quasi-Saint? How come there were 2 more 10th Order Quasi-Saint? Just how many 10th Order Quasi-Saint did he have behind him? Alright, Murong Yu, sit down. At this moment, the Dean of Primeval College, who was also the Supreme Commander of the human army, Yuan Yuan, shouted in a low voice. At the same time, he waved his hand, and a chair appeared on the left side of the hall, near Savage College. Seeing this seat, everyone present was shocked. Because this seat was second only to Infinite Wasteland College, Great Wilderness College, and Savage College. However, everyone soon felt relieved. With the strength that Murong Yu had displayed, he was qualified to sit there. Moreover, in terms of the strength of the top experts, even the Savage Academy and the others would be suppressed. However, the 3 colleges ruled 3 large continents. Even if the top experts were not as strong as Shenzhen, their positions would not change. While everyone was shocked, the 3 great academies were somewhat displeased. Strictly speaking, Murong Yu was still a student of Primeval College. Now, Primeval College was the supreme commander of the human army, and Murong Yu was also in such a high position, especially Abyssal College. After Murong Yu appeared, they all looked at him with murderous intent, as if they wanted to kill Murong Yu. However, Murong Yu acted as if he didn't see it and sat down. However, Wen Ling and the other 3 merely stood respectfully behind him, not uttering a single word. Suddenly, the sacred hall fell silent. No one spoke. Murong Yu frowned slightly. Just as he was about to speak, Yuan Yuan said, "Let's continue the discussion." Murong Yu, what do you think? Murong Yu was unhappy. What did he think? He did not even know what they were discussing. What did he think? Everyone here is the upper echelon of the human army. We should rule our own forces and fight against the demons. Until we destroy them, said a big shot from Abyssal College. Murong Yu sneered. Did he not mean to make Shenzhen cannon fodder? The 3 colleges had countless forces and warriors under them. However, Murong Yu only had 1 Shenzhen. They could not compare in terms of numbers. He said, "Our Shenzhen has already brought 1/3 of our disciples to the front lines. We must participate in the war. However, my current position is the 4th. Therefore, I do not wish for Shenzhen's resources to be unfairly distributed." That's impossible. With so few people from Shenzhen participating in the war, you can only get the same amount of resources, said the big shot from Abyssal College. Murong Yu sneered. Our Shenzhen takes 10,000 years as a benchmark. Every 10,000 years, 1/3 of our disciples will come to Eastern Wilderness. In other words, our Shenzhen is participating in the war. Shouldn't we get the same amount of resources as our status? Or should I say that the resources you get from Abyssal College can allow all the gods from all the continents, including Abyssal College, to participate in the war? The big shot from Abyssal College fell silent. In fact, the resources were distributed according to their seats in the hall. However, Shenzhen had too few disciples. If they could get so many resources, it would be unfair to them. How many disciples does Shenzhen have? Millions? Tens of millions? Hundreds of millions? Said a big shot from Savage College. If I didn't remember wrongly, Shenzhen's disciples aren't very strong, right? If they aren't strong, it means that they won't be of much use in the war. It's just a waste of resources. Murong Yu smiled and looked at the big shot from Savage College. He then pointed at Wen Ling and the other 3 and said, You're saying that the 4 level 10 quasi-saint aren't strong? Does your Savage College have saint-level existences? The big shot from Savage College fell silent. Murong Yu, the only ones you have are the 4 level 10 quasi-saint, right? How many quasi-saint are there in Shenzhen? Dozens? This is a war between two races. Dozens of quasi-saints might not be able to do much. The one who spoke was a big shot from Great Desolation College. Murong Yu looked at him with disdain and sneered. Great Desolation College has ruled the Great Desolation mainland for countless years. May I ask, how many level 10 quasi-saints do you have? As he spoke, Murong Yu indifferently swept his gaze over everyone present. He then said in a deep voice, I'm not afraid to tell you that even a saint-level expert can't do anything to me. They're just fake saints. Everyone was shocked. They didn't know why Murong Yu was so arrogant. Could it be that he really had a saint backing him? Today, I'm only here to get the resources I deserve. As for everything else, I'm not interested. Of course, in this war, you'll know if our Shenzhen has any great achievements. Before he finished speaking, he left the hall with Wen Ling and the rest. Impudent. Too arrogant. After Murong Yu left, the big shots from the 3 colleges were enraged. However, other than them, the big shots from the other forces only frowned. Although they were unhappy, they didn't say it out loud. After leaving Great Desolation City, Murong Yu went to the back of the army and released 1/3 of Shenzhen's disciples. After so many years of development, the number of Shenzhen's disciples in the realm of the gods had increased to hundreds of millions. After all, it was still extremely difficult to become an immortal or god. Most importantly, it hadn't been long since Murong Yu had ascended. Although Shenzhen had various resources to support it, there weren't many people as powerful as Murong Yu. Therefore, if Shenzhen wanted more disciples to ascend, they would have to wait for many years. Build the holy city. After Shenzhen's disciples appeared, they immediately started to build the holy city. This war would definitely be a long and drawn-out war. After 100 years, the armies from both sides had gathered. On this day, the experts from the demon race attacked. They brought hundreds of millions of experts from the demon race and flew over to start a war. Experts at the level of quasi-saint couldn't attack and couldn't kill the leader. This was an agreement that both sides had reached. This was because in this war it was either you die or I die. Therefore, no matter if it was the human race or the demon race, they had to first exhaust the ordinary people of the other side. Moreover, if quasi-saint attacked, it would only be a chaotic battle. By then, even if they won, they would suffer great losses. After all, although experts at the level of quasi-saint were powerful, they would be killed quickly in the face of hundreds of millions of ordinary gods. This confrontation was just a test. The human race immediately sent out hundreds of millions of troops to confront the demon race on the battlefield. Among them, Murong Yu was among them. This time, Murong Yu took the initiative to fight. Moreover, he only brought 100 million disciples from Shenzhen to fight. Ha ha! Is there no one else in the human race? They actually sent out these good-for-nothings to fight? Seeing that the Murong Yu standing in front of the army was just a heavenly emperor realm, and the realms of the soldiers behind him were also mixed, the many experts from the demon race could not help laughing loudly, their expressions full of disdain. Chapter 1077. Murong Yu did not lack comprehension pills, and they could accelerate time. But even so, there were not many heavenly venerables in Shenzhen. Therefore, among the Shenzhen disciples led by Murong Yu, the highest realm was at the heavenly venerables, and the lowest realm was even at the heavenly venerables. The lower the realm, the more people there were. On the contrary, the demon army on the other side also had people of all realms. But there were many heavenly venerables, primordial gods, and heavenly emperors. The reason why the demons laughed in disdain was because Murong Yu's strength was at the peak of the heavenly emperor realm. And the leader of the demon army was at the peak of the heavenly venerables. In the god realm, there were not many quasi-saint, but there were definitely many heavenly venerables. It was not only the demons who mocked Morong Yu's lineup. Most of the humans did not think highly of it. What the hell is this kid doing? Although there are many experts in Shenzhen and quasi-saint, the ordinary disciples are too trashy. Under the situation where quasi-saint can't take action, wouldn't they be courting death if they went out? Lose face? If they are defeated, it will be a huge blow to the morale of our human army, a big shot from Abyssal College said with a gloomy face. They want to be in the limelight so much that they've gone crazy. They're simply courting death. Why don't we send troops to hold the line? Otherwise, if they fail, it will be a serious blow to our army's morale. Fangua glanced indifferently at the person who spoke and said, Morong Yu never does things that he's not confident of. Don't worry blindly. Fangua, I know that you two have a very good relationship in private, but do you think Morong Yu has any hope of winning like this? Fangua immediately fell silent. Because the difference in strength between the two sides was too great, even he was not optimistic. General, let's send troops. Many people looked at the human general, Yuan Yuan, and asked for instructions. Believe in Morong Yu, Yuan Yuan said calmly. If he did not have confidence in Morong Yu, he would not have allowed Morong Yu to bring Shenzhen's disciples to battle. Human, come out and accept your death. Inside the demon race camp, a peak heavenly emperor powerhouse stepped out of the air, looking at Morong Yu's side with a look of disdain as he shouted loudly. Shenzhen immediately asked many people to fight, but they were all suppressed by Morong Yu. He wanted to fight this battle himself. Thus, he rose into the air and slowly walked towards the demon race elite. Both humans and demons couldn't help but shake their heads. Which general would go out to meet the enemy at the very beginning? Morong Yu was truly. Many humans felt helpless. On the other hand, the demon race was overjoyed, especially the one who was going to fight. He felt that if he could kill Morong Yu, it would definitely deal a huge blow to the morale of the human army. And the Celestial Palace would definitely reward him with large amounts of resources. At that time, his status would rise rapidly. Sigh. Many people in the demon race territory could not help shaking their heads and sighing, secretly regretting that they did not fight first. Otherwise, the credit would have been theirs. Who are you? State your name, so that I can record it in the merit book. The demon pointed at Morong Yu and said loudly. Holy Lord Shenzhen, Morong Yu. Morong Yu said coolly, then took a step out and disappeared on the spot. Boom. The next moment, before his figure appeared, an incomparably huge fist already appeared out of thin air. An aura that could destroy heaven and earth erupted fiercely. This divine hammer-like fist slammed onto the demon race powerhouse's body. After a huge explosion, this demon race heavenly emperor's entire body was blown into billions of pieces. Even his soul did not have time to escape. At this time, Morong Yu's figure slowly appeared from the void. The demon race heavenly emperor was dead. The speed was so fast that everyone who saw this scene could not react in time. The demon race is merely SOSO. Morong Yu stood in the void and looked at the demon race army in the distance indifferently, his eyes full of disdain. What fast speed! What powerful strength! Only until this time did everyone on both sides react, each and every one of them extremely shocked in their hearts. Both peak heavenly emperors, but Morong Yu killed the other party with one punch. How terrifying was his strength! Holy Lord is mighty! Holy Lord is invincible! Right then, Shenzhen's disciples who reacted started shouting. For a moment, the morale of the humans skyrocketed rapidly, while the demon race's morale was somewhat dispirited. Don't be arrogant, in the demon race army, a primordial god realm powerhouse tore through the air. Before the person even approached, a large hand blotted out the sky and covered the earth, suppressing down on Morong Yu. Primordial god. Right now it was a fair war. The demon race side actually wanted a high-level powerhouse to take action to deal with Murongyu? After the humans reacted, there were already people who could not resist cursing. Primordial God is merely SOSO. Before the other party reported his name, Murongyu disappeared on the spot in an instant. The power of 3 divine personas erupted at the same time. In an instant, Murongyu's strength was raised to peak primordial God. Of course, what he increased now was only his strength, but his realm still remained at peak primordial God. I can kill you with one punch, Murongyu roared, a 1,000-army elephant pulling fist fiercely smashing out. Boom! After an earth-shaking explosion, the primordial god's large hand was directly shattered by Murongyu's punch. Meanwhile, Murongyu's divine fist only paused for a moment, then continued to bombard the primordial god without any hindrance. The divine fist was invincible, and the obstruction of the void seemed to exist at all. With one punch, he appeared in front of the primordial god. The primordial god was horrified and immediately swallowed the words he had yet to speak. With a thought, his figure retreated explosively. Die! With a roar, Murongyu's divine fist suddenly accelerated and directly bombarded the other party's body. Impossible! The demon clan expert roared as he looked at his body that had been smashed into millions of pieces. However, his consciousness had already dissipated. The primordial god of the demon race was dead. He was also killed by Murongyu with one punch. How is this possible? He's only a celestial emperor. How can he kill a primordial god with one punch? Could it be that the primordial god race is really too weak? Seeing this scene, countless people in the primordial god race army were puzzled in their hearts. And once this kind of negative mentality appeared, their morale would start to plummet. But morale was the most important thing to an army. While on the other side, the morale of the humans, especially Shenzhen's disciples, rose to a peak. Each and every one of them was undoubtedly excited, as if they were possessed by a fiend god, able to jump realms and kill people. Is there an Empyrean realm powerhouse who wants to fight with me? Murongyu stood in the air, looking at the primordial god race army in the distance. I'll go and kill him. Countless primordial god race powerhouses could not hold back the anger in their hearts and requested to go to battle one after another. I'll go and kill him, the primordial god race General Gan Shan said in a solemn voice. At the same time, he strode out in large strides and welcomed Murongyu. Gan Shan, peak Empyrean realm, his strength formidable. As the primordial god race army's general this time, his strength far surpassed ordinary Empyrean powerhouses. Gan Shan stood in front of Murongyu and said to Murongyu in a solemn voice, Murongyu, kneel down and submit. Lead your Shenzhen to join our primordial god race. I can guarantee you a lifetime of glory, splendor, wealth, and rank. Murongyu smiled and said, Why don't you surrender and become my slave? I guarantee that you'll ascend to the holy world in the future. Gan Shan had a look of disdain, his expression full of sneering. How many people wanted to become saints but could not become saint? Although Murongyu's strength was powerful, he was not even a quasi-saint. How could he be so arrogant? Since you don't believe, then forget it. Murongyu said coolly as if he was having a heart-to-heart talk with a friend. However, if I were you, I'd immediately lead the troops and retreat. Otherwise, this several 100 million army of yours in a while, I can wipe them all out, leaving no fowls or dogs. Ha ha ha! Gan Shan laughed out loud and said, I'd like to see how you're going to wipe out my hundreds of millions army now. At the same time, the primordial god race in the primordial god race army also laughed out loud, thinking that Murongyu was too arrogant. Just based on their 100 million people? As long as Quasi-Saint did not take action, unless the human race sent a few billion troops, it would be impossible to wipe out their hundreds of millions army. Since that's the case, then do it. Just as Murongyu shouted the word "do it" in the primordial god race army, Those primordial god race members who had reached the heavenly venerate realm all screamed in agony. Most of the people who screamed were directly killed. As for some of the more powerful individuals, they managed to react in time and quickly retreated. However, one figure after another stepped out of the void and chased after them like a shadow. In the end, these people could not escape at all and were directly killed. In a short moment, at least 100,000 primordial god race members were killed. The most terrifying thing was that after killing these 100,000 primordial god race members, those people who took action disappeared into thin air again. The primordial god race army was immediately shocked, each and every one of them looking around vigilantly. They wanted to attack in a large area, but they did not dare to, because they were surrounded by their own people. The moment they took action, they would definitely hurt their own people and might not be able to hurt those people hidden in the void. While the primordial god race army was bewildered, those people who disappeared appeared again. This time, their targets were still heavenly venerate powerhouses. A series of screams sounded again. 100,000 heavenly venerate powerhouses fell again. The primordial god race army finally panicked. Although they had a lot of heavenly venerates, if this continued, they would all be wiped out sooner or later. And just how many people were there on the other side? But it was unknown. Run. Finally, some of the primordial god race members who were terrified could not help but flee. As long as one person escaped, then there would be a chain reaction with even more people fleeing. Finally, the primordial god race army was in chaos. The hundreds of millions of people scattered into a group and retreated explosively. No matter how the generals tried to control it, they could not control it. It's your turn now. Murong Yu looked at Gan Shan and smiled slightly. However, as he spoke, he retreated explosively. And right at this moment, several incomparably terrifying forces shot out from the void and strangled Gan Shan. In an instant, an incomparably strong aura of death enveloped Gan Shan's heart. Chapter 1078. Boom. Just as Gan Shan's heart was enveloped by a strong aura of death, those few forces had already broken through the obstruction of the void and bombarded his body. A terrifying power erupted in an instant. Instantly, Gan Shan only had time to let out a furious roar before his entire body exploded. Even his soul could not escape. The demon general Gan Shan was killed. Seeing this scene, the hundreds of millions of demon race soldiers were even more frightened. All of them were terrified and quickly fled for their lives. Like monkeys scattering when the tree falls, the demon race army no longer had anyone who wanted to fight, and their morale fell to the bottom. During this process, many of the fleeing demon race soldiers began to die. They were killed by their own people, killed without a doubt, and so on. At this time, those black-robed men who had appeared out of thin air were no longer hiding in the void. Instead, they directly launched their strongest attacks, each of which was a fatal blow. They attacked wildly. Kill! Murong Yu roared. Immediately, Shenzhen's 100 million disciples, who had long been prepared, shouted at the same time and rushed out. Unlike the defeated demon race, Shenzhen's disciples were orderly. 10 people formed a small team and rushed into the demon race army at the same time. Immediately, the demon race army, which had no power to fight back, began to die even faster. The demon race army's numbers decreased rapidly. On Shenzhen's side, 10 people formed a small team, 10 small teams formed a large team, 10 large teams formed a legion. Each team looked after each other. Because of this, they received very little damage. There were almost no casualties. Defeat. Defeat. Because of those black-robed men who had suddenly launched a sneak attack, almost all of the demon race's heavenly venerables were killed. The remaining people had long been scared out of their wits and were crazily killed by Shenzhen's disciples. Therefore, in less than half a day, the demon race army, which was 7 to 8 times more than Shenzhen's disciples, was completely defeated by Shenzhen's disciples. They were all killed, not a single one was left alive. Is this Shenzhen's strength? Why were those men in black so terrifyingly strong? They're all hiding in the demon race's army? Seeing this scene, everyone on the human side was shocked. In this battle, every one of Shenzhen's disciples displayed strength that exceeded their cultivation level. Especially those men in black, their invisibility ability was too terrifying. If they hadn't appeared and hid in the void, even the average quasi-saint wouldn't have been able to discover them. All of them were at the Empyrean realm, all of them had super powerful concealment technique. Could they all be assassins? However, how could Shenzhen have so many assassins? Could it be someone from the Ghost organization? Everyone was puzzled, wondering about the origins of those black-clothed men. At this moment, the black-robed men had already hidden themselves in the void and disappeared. No matter how they scanned the area with their divine senses, they were unable to discover anything. These people were not the killers of the Phantom. They were the powerhouses of Shenzhen's 100,000 battle team. During this period of time, Murong Yu used Hichu Luoshu's ability to accelerate time to raise their strength to the Empyrean realm, and even train them to be like immortals. This was the first time they appeared in public, but they didn't disappoint Murong Yu. Shenzhen's disciples didn't disappoint Murong Yu either. After cleaning up the battlefield, Murong Yu brought Shenzhen's disciples back. The first battle was a victory. It greatly inspired the hearts of the human race. At the same time, Murong Yu's goal was also achieved. In one fell swoop, they displayed strength that wasn't inferior to any superforce. Moreover, this wasn't even taking into account quasi-saint's strength. For a time, Shenzhen's name quickly spread throughout the human race, reaching the peak of history. In the human race's territory, even more people rushed to the holy city, wanting to join Shenzhen and become Shenzhen's disciples. As soon as Murong Yu returned to the holy city, the emissary of the human race army arrived. After wantonly praising Murong Yu and Shenzhen, he even gave Murong Yu the resources rewarded by the commander. This was the reward for winning the battle. Murong Yu accepted it without hesitation. Only a few of the 100,000 battle team's powerhouses were injured, and no one died. However, although Shenzhen's disciples had formed teams, there were still people who died. They lost 1,000th of their people, although they were all people of lower realms. When the post-battle statistics were presented, Murong Yu couldn't help but frown slightly. 1,000th didn't seem like much, but how much was 1,000th of 100 million? 100,000 people. In other words, after 1,000 battles like this, Shenzhen's people might be wiped out. Shenzhen's strength still needs to be strengthened. Murong Yu frowned slightly, but ordered to start training in the holy city. In a large-scale war, although individual strength had some effect, it relied more on the role of the team. Murong Yu, Shenzhen, how could their strength increase so quickly? When the news of the annihilation of the entire army came back, the demon race was furious. It's mainly those black-robed men. Their sneak attack greatly damaged the morale of our army. In the end, we were all wiped out. Did you find out the identity of those people? Could they be the ghost killers? They don't look like the ghost killers, and they have never been exposed. It should be Shenzhen's secret strength. Could it be the secret army trained by the saint behind Murong Yu? It's just 100,000 people. After being exposed this time, they will be useless in the future. The demon race felt that as long as they were more careful in the future, Shenzhen's people would not be caught off guard like today. Perhaps they wanted to boost their morale. After the first defeat, the demon race launched another attack. This time, the demon race army was even larger, reaching billions. When the human race thought that Murong Yu would continue to fight, Shenzhen's side did not make any movements. In the end, Abyssal College could only go out and fight. It was different from the first battle where they won cleanly. In this great battle, the human clan and the demon clan's armies were evenly matched. In the vast and boundless battlefield, they were in a frenzy, fighting and killing each other. The sound of killing shook the sky, blood splattered, blood flowed like a river, bones were everywhere, and the whole earth seemed to be dyed red. Both sides added up to tens of billions of experts. Tens of billions of people attacking at the same time. The scene was extremely spectacular and tragic. The terrifying power continued to erupt, shattering the sky and shattering the turbulent space. This is a real war. Floating in the sky and looking at the tens of billions of people fighting in front, even Murong-yu was stunned by the tragic atmosphere. This war lasted for a few months. It was only when both sides suffered heavy losses, adding up to less than 1 billion people, that both sides retreated. However, in the following period of time, wars of this scale, or even larger scale, were constantly being played out. After all, in this war, it was either you die or I die. Tens of billions, hundreds of billions of casualties. However, compared to the human clan and the demon clan, which were as numerous as the grains of sand in the Ganges River, these dead soldiers were only a small portion. In addition to those who died, there were even more people who were injured. In the realm of the gods, injuries that could be healed quickly were not called injuries. The so-called injuries were injuries that required large amounts of resources and time to heal. On this day, Murong-yu's Saint Hand Hall officially opened. Facing the entire human race, whether it was a small injury or a big injury, whether it was a new illness or an old illness, as long as one could afford the price, he could treat them. However, what made Murong-yu depressed was that after a few days of the Saint Hand Hall's opening, there were almost no outsiders who came to seek treatment from him other than Shenzhen's disciples. That was true, he was only a heavenly emperor. In the great desolate city, Old Man Pei, a genius doctor whose name had shaken the entire divine realm, had been overseeing the city for a long time. Furthermore, his consultation fee was extremely high. This was because Old Man Pei and the other genius doctors were working for the human army. The army had subsidies for them. The consultation fee was not high, and they were famous genius doctors. Those who were injured naturally knew what to choose. Old Man Pei, are you really unable to heal my injuries in a short period of time? In the primeval desolation city, in the rejuvenation hall, a quasi-saint level expert roared at Old Man Pei. The war had been going on for so many days, and it was not just ordinary gods who were fighting every day. There were also battles between quasi-saint level experts. However, this was only a battle between quasi-saint level experts. They were not allowed to participate in the battles between ordinary gods. The quasi-saint who was roaring at this moment was a level 5 quasi-saint. Not long ago, he met a level 5 quasi-saint from the demon race on the battlefield. They were originally mortal enemies, and when enemies met, their eyes blazed with hatred. Without saying a word, they started the battle. After a few months of battle, the human quasi-saint successfully killed the demon race quasi-saint. However, he was also heavily injured by the demon race quasi-saint's final counterattack. With his own strength, he would need at least 1,000,000 years to recover from his injuries and reach his peak strength. With the current situation, if he did not have strength for a few million years, he would probably be killed directly by others. He would not even have the ability to protect himself. I'm a divine doctor, but I can't treat all injuries. Old Man Pei said helplessly. He would need all sorts of godly ingredients and herbs to treat his injuries. Furthermore, with such heavy injuries, even if he had medicine, he would not be able to recover in a short period of time. Is there really no way? The level 5 quasi-saint looked at divine Dr. Pei with a face full of displeasure. He felt that divine Dr. Pei's reputation was undeserved. You can look for Murong-yu. He might have a way. However, you will need to prepare sufficient consultation fees. Old Man Pei said indifferently. Murong-yu? Chaos Shenzhen, that Murong-yu? He can do it? The level 5 quasi-saint looked at Old Man Pei suspiciously. If you want to recover, look for Murong-yu. However, if you don't have sufficient consultation fees, he won't even bother to look at you. Old Man Pei said indifferently. Schwa. Before Old Man Pei could finish his sentence, the level 5 quasi-saint disappeared from his original position. Old Man Pei shook his head. This guy actually dared to use his strength. Isn't he afraid of aggravating his injuries? Chapter 1079. Where is Murongyu? In the eastern wilderness, a figure appeared in the sky above the holy city. A violent aura emanated from his body, enveloping the entire holy city in an instant. At the same time, an earth-shattering roar was heard. The terrifying sound waves hit the holy city in an instant, and some of the weaker disciples almost fainted. Impudent! An angry roar was heard, followed by a monstrous hand reaching out from the holy city and slapping the figure in the sky. The person in the sky was the rank 5 quasi-saint who had come from Old Man Pei's place. This guy relied on his strength as a rank 5 quasi-saint. Although he had come to seek medical treatment, he could not lower himself. Hence, this scene occurred. At this moment, when he saw the incoming hand, he only sneered and was about to retreat. However, the one who had attacked was the rank 10 quasi-saint, Shin Tu Hai. How could a mere rank 5 quasi-saint resist? With a bang, the rank 5 quasi-saint was slapped down by Shin Tu Hai and fell to the ground, creating a huge human-shaped crater. Pooh! Although Shin Tu Hai did not have the intention to kill, he did not go easy on him. The rank 5 quasi-saint was already heavily injured. Now that he was slapped by Shin Tu Hai, he immediately spat out blood, worsening his injuries. The rank 5 quasi-saint was depressed. He did not expect the holy city to have such a powerful existence. Otherwise, he would not have appeared like this. However, before he could finish his gloominess, the large hand from before grabbed him and took him away. Kid, you're courting death, do you know that? Shin Tu Hai looked coldly at the rank 5 quasi-saint with murderous intent. The rank 5 quasi-saint smiled embarrassedly and immediately apologized. Senior, I'm here to seek medical treatment. Please introduce me to Holy Lord Murongyu. In front of the rank 10 quasi-saint, the rank 5 quasi-saint could only lower his stance. Otherwise, Shin Tu Hai could crush him to death with a single finger. Scram! Shin Tu Hai roared, wanting to chase the type 5 quasi-saint away. The type 5 quasi-saint felt bitter, feeling as though he had shot himself in the foot. However, he did not leave. Shin Tu Hai snorted coldly and stretched out his hand, grabbing this 5th stage quasi-sage, and wanting to throw him out. Shin Tu Hai, it's not right to treat a guest like this. Just as Shin Tu Hai was about to toss the quasi-saint away, Murongyu's voice rang out. Yes, Holy Lord. Shin Tu Hai obeyed Murongyu's every word, immediately releasing the type 5 quasi-saint. The tier 5 quasi-saint instantly felt that spring had arrived. He turned to look at Murongyu. A smile appeared on his face. Murongyu, Holy Lord, please, you must heal my injuries. As for the consultation fee, I'll definitely satisfy you. Murongyu faintly wrinkled his brows, but a smile quickly appeared on his face. There's no problem with your injuries. However, my consultation fee is much more expensive than others. Moreover, your roar in the sky above the holy city injured countless of my Shengzhen's disciples. You have to compensate for this. The type 5 quasi-saint frowned slightly, but in order to recover his strength, he agreed. How much is the consultation fee? 100 million Saint Meridians and 1,000 Saint Artifacts. Murongyu said indifferently. Plop. The type 5 quasi-saint immediately fell to the ground. Even if he was the type 5 quasi-saint, where did he get 100 million Saint Meridians and 1,000 Saint Artifacts? Things of this level, whether it was divine artifacts or Saint Meridians, were extremely rare. Holy Lord, this is a little expensive, the type 5 quasi-saint said gloomily. In fact, how is it a little expensive? In fact, it was too expensive. You can go back. Perhaps after a few million years, your injuries will be healed. However, during this process, you might have been killed by your enemies or devil race experts. 100 million saint-grade divine veins, 1,000 saint-grade divine artifacts, or your life, which one is more precious? Murong Yu indifferently asked. But I really don't have these things. He might be able to take out some saint meridians and divine artifacts, but that was after countless years of living. Even if he used up all his lifespan, he might not be able to gather 100 million saint meridians. Can you pay me in installments? The Type 5 quasi-saint said bitterly. Murong Yu shook his head. The Type 5 quasi-saint sighed and shook his head as he walked out. The consultation fee was too expensive, and he couldn't afford it. Of course, there is another way, Murong Yu said indifferently just as the Type 5 quasi-saint was about to leave. The Type 5 quasi-saint was pleasantly surprised and turned to look at Murong Yu. 500,000 years. I can heal your injuries in a day and let you return to your peak state. However, you must serve me and Shenzhen for 500,000 years. Of course, I won't send you to your death while you're serving me. However, there are some normal orders that you must follow unconditionally. 500,000 years. Sell his life to Murong Yu? The fifth-level quasi-saint frowned deeply. His heart was filled with resistance against such a request. After all, he was a quasi-saint and had the dignity of a quasi-saint. If he worked for Murong Yu, he couldn't swallow his pride. Your injuries, if you want to recover by yourself, would take at least a few million years. Now, it only takes 1/10 of your time. After 500,000 years, you can regain your freedom. If you agree, I will treat you immediately. Otherwise, you can leave. Murong Yu wasn't in a hurry and said indifferently, I'm willing. The Type 5 quasi-saint pondered for a while, then gritted his teeth and agreed. With a faint smile, Murong Yu tossed out a prepared contract. It'll take effect after you sign it. The Type 5 quasi-saint glanced at it and immediately signed his name. It was only now that Murong Yu knew that he was called Yu Dong. Let's begin. After Yu Dong signed, Murong Yu gestured for him to sit cross-legged. Right here? Yu Dong was a little hesitant. When he saw Murong Yu nod, he immediately sat down cross-legged. Murong Yu also sat cross-legged behind him and placed his hands on his back. Immediately, an incomparably powerful life force rushed into his body. In an instant, Yu Dong found that his injuries were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The stronger the physical body, the slower the recovery. Although Yu Dong's physical body was far inferior to Murong Yu's, it was still relatively strong compared to his strength. Therefore, if he needed to recover, it would take an extremely long time. However, these injuries were nothing in front of Murong Yu's life force. They were healed immediately. In less than half a day, Yu Dong's injuries that would take millions of years to recover had been healed. Not only did his strength recover to its peak, but it also seemed to have improved. Thank you, Holy Lord. After discovering all this, Yu Dong lowered his head and bowed. If he was still a little unwilling to sign the contract before, then this time, he was more than willing to do so. At the same time, the shock in Yu Dong's heart was unparalleled. Injuries that would take millions of years to recover were healed in less than half a day. All of this was simply too shocking. Yu Dong, you are my first patient. You should be very clear about what to do next. Murong Yu looked at Yu Dong and smiled faintly. I know. Yu Dong bowed to Murong Yu before his figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. Swoosh. When he appeared again, he was already in the Huichun Hall in Desolation City. Old Man Pei, although you can't heal me, you can. However, you recommended Murong Yu, the Holy Lord of the Primal Chaos Shenzhen. Although Murong Yu's consultation fee is more expensive, the injuries that would take millions of years to recover were healed in less than a day. Therefore, I specially came to thank you, Yu Dong said loudly after he appeared. His loud voice spread far and wide, attracting many people. Old Man Pei looked at Yudong and realized that his injuries were indeed healed. He could not help but be stunned. Although he knew that Murong Yu's life force was abnormal, he did not expect it to be abnormal to this extent. Isn't this quasi-saint? His injuries are really healed? Many people present had seen Yudong wreaking havoc in the Huichun Hall. At that time, Yudong was in a very sorry state, but now he was in high spirits. How did he look injured? Could it be that he is really healed? Is it really that miraculous? Everyone's interest was piqued by Murong Yu. You don't believe me? Yudong could not help but glare when he saw everyone pointing at him. Just when everyone thought that he was going to flip out, Yudong said, "If you don't believe me, you can go and try. However, let me give you a piece of advice. If you want Murong Yu to treat you, don't prepare enough consultation fee. Let's go. Let's go and take a look." In an instant, many people were tempted. They left the Huichun Hall one after another. Not long after, the originally crowded Huichun Hall was only left with 2 or 3 people. Old Man Pei was depressed. Wasn't Murong Yu trying to steal his business? However, this was normal. With Murong Yu's strength, it was only a matter of time before he stole his business. Holy City, in front of the Hall of the Holy Hand. The originally empty Hall of the Holy Hand was now filled with long queues. There was an endless stream of people walking out of the Hall of the Holy Hand in high spirits. These people were all seriously injured before they went in. Now, they were walking out with smiles on their faces. It was obvious that their injuries had been treated. Is Murong Yu's ability really so terrifying? No matter how serious the injuries are, as long as there is enough shock, they can recover quickly. After those who had been treated left Holy City, they were still shocked. They talked about how powerful Murong Yu was. In an instant, the news of Murong Yu, the great miracle doctor, quickly spread among the human army. Many people came after hearing the news, wanting to be treated by Murong Yu. Murong Yu, on the other hand, didn't refuse anyone. Of course, the prerequisite was that there was enough consultation fee. Otherwise, no matter who you were, he would ignore you. Chapter 1080. After the war broke out, it had been going on. In the blink of an eye, 10,000 years had passed. In these 10,000 years, both the human race and the demon race had lost many gods. Hundreds of millions. However, the more people died, the more tragic the war became. The hatred between the two races towards each other grew stronger. However, the war that had lasted for 10,000 years had also gradually changed. In the beginning, it was either the demon race or the human race that took the initiative to attack. This went on for close to 10,000 years. Now, the two races no longer sent out their troops together. They had both retreated to two sides of the eastern wilderness. In the entire eastern wilderness, other than the bases of the two races, everything else had become a battlefield. In the battlefield, whether it was an individual, a team, or an army, they were often active and killing the enemy. By killing the enemy, they could obtain the items in the enemy's storage space. They could even steal the enemy's divinity and so on. Other than that, they could also kill the enemy's clansmen. In this process, Murong Yu had also brought Shengzhen's disciples out many times. Every time they went out, they would be able to kill countless demon race experts. However, Shengzhen's disciples were not invincible. Every time they went out, there would be people who would die. This was something that was inevitable. However, because of the war, the strength of these people on the battlefield had increased rapidly. Especially the 100,000 battle teams. They were all very powerful and had terrifying concealment abilities. Hence, in these 10,000 years, no one had died. However, there were many people who were severely injured. However, Murong Yu would not charge these people for treatment. A ray of life energy would heal them, no matter how serious the injury was. In these 10,000 years, the 100,000 battle teams had been attacking continuously. At least a few 100 million demon race experts had died in their hand. The more enemies they killed, the more benefits they would receive. Basically, Murong-Yu would not ask about the spoils of war that they obtained on the battlefield. Of course, Murong-Yu also welcomed these people to donate their spoils of war to Shenzhen's treasury. Night Walker. This was the name that the demon race and the human race had given to Shenzhen's 100,000 battle teams. This was because no one had ever discovered their existence. No one knew where they were or where they were hiding. Just like travelers in the night, no one could know their whereabouts. The human race was a little better because they weren't enemies. However, the demon race was much more terrified. This was because many of the demon race's troops had been killed by the Nightwalkers on the battlefield. If there were not many demon soldiers, Shenzhen's team would directly launch a sneak attack and annihilate all the demon soldiers. If there were too many enemies, they would continuously ambush, hide, and ambush as long as Quasi-Saint didn't show up. No one could do anything to these experts. Therefore, many experts of the demon race were trembling with fear after entering the battlefield. They were not worried about encountering the human army, but they were afraid of encountering the Nightwalkers. Both sides suffered heavy losses. However, there was only one person who profited greatly. He was Murong-Yu. Many people died in the war. However, there were even more people who were injured. Moreover, Murong-Yu's healing ability was extremely terrifying. His power had long spread among the human army. Therefore, some seriously injured people would often pay a high price to get Murong-Yu to treat them. After 10,000 years, the medical fees that Murong-Yu earned were comparable to the treasure vault of Flying Cloud Cliff. It had already surpassed the treasure vault of the Divine Union for many years. One could imagine how terrifying his income was. Of course, it wasn't that no one was jealous of Murong-Yu and came over to wantonly cause trouble. However, there were several rank 10 Quasi-Saint overseeing the holy city. Those who came over to cause trouble were all taken down and then thrown out after paying a high compensation. There was no other way. Shenzhen was now very powerful. Ordinary people were not qualified to come over and cause trouble at all. However, Murong-Yu was also depressed. Because 10,000 years had passed, his strength was still stagnant at the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm and had not improved at all. If the human race won the war between the two races, Murong-Yu's current strength would be sufficient. However, if the human race was defeated, his strength might not even be able to protect Shenzhen. Swoosh! Murong-Yu had just healed a seriously injured Heavenly Venerate when a figure appeared in front of him the next moment. The person who came was Fan Tong. After this guy got married, it was unknown whether or not he cultivated the sinful dual cultivation technique, but his strength skyrocketed all the way. Now, he actually already reached the Heavenly Emperor realm. Murong-Yu, do you feel that something is wrong? Fan Tong asked immediately after he came over. Murong-Yu felt baffled. What's wrong? Could it be that the demon race powerhouses are coming over to launch a sneak attack? Fan Tong shook his head. Sneak attacks were a common occurrence. It was not enough to make him feel that something was wrong. I feel that the sky seems to be changing, Fan Tong said in a low voice. Why do you suddenly have this feeling? You haven't left the holy city for a long time and set foot on the battlefield, right? Just go to the battlefield and experience it. Seeing Fan Tong's solemn expression, it did not seem like he was joking. Murong-Yu could not help but frown slightly. After immediately instructing for the treatment to be suspended, he left the battlefield with Yang Qin and Zhuoqiu Qing. The restriction flew towards the battlefield. Before they even got close to the battlefield, an extremely strong smell of blood assaulted their nostrils. The strong stench made people want to vomit. Looking around, there were originally mountains and rivers, but the ground had long been flattened. The entire ground turned purple-black. This was because too many people had bled on this land. Many little drops made an ocean. In the end, even the ground turned purple-black. Although there was no fighting nearby, Morong-yu felt a solemn and austere atmosphere. There was even a strong sense of oppression. That kind of oppression seemed to come from the soul, but also seemed to come from the body. From the sky and the ground, it pressed down from all directions. Other than these feelings, Morong-yu seemed to feel another kind of aura. It was faintly discernible, but it made Morong-yu's heart palpitate. Chi. At this moment, Fan Tong cut his other hand with a hand knife. A large amount of blood spurted out and splattered on the ground. Just as Morong-yu looked at Fan Tong with a surprised gaze, wondering why he would harm himself, Fan Tong said, "Look at the blood." Morong-yu looked over and saw that the blood quickly disappeared after coming into contact with the ground, seeping into the depths of the ground. What's strange? When liquid falls to the ground, it will seep quickly. Morong-yu looked at Fan Tong. Don't you think the speed of the seeping is too fast? Moreover, my blood didn't even stay on the ground. It was as if something was devouring the blood below. Morong-yu was slightly shocked. Something was sucking the blood below? Moreover, it's not just here. The entire battlefield, and even the entire eastern wilderness is the same. Fan Tong said in a low voice. If there's really something absorbing blood, then is there only one in the entire continent, or is there such a thing in the entire eastern wilderness? Fan Tong shook his head. He only felt that it was strange. Now, many people must have noticed this phenomenon and made all kinds of guesses. It was just that no one knew what it was. Moreover, although they felt that there was something strange in the eastern wilderness, the war between the two races would definitely not end. The eastern wilderness was still a battlefield. Otherwise, they would have to enter the human or demon race's continent to fight. It would no longer be a confrontation, but a war of conquest. What do your father and the others think? Fan Tong shook his head. Divine Lord, there are demon race experts coming. Should we retreat first? As the quasi-saint did not allow ordinary people to participate in the war, Yang Qin and the others could not interfere if the demon race attacked. Once they interfered, the quasi-saint of the demon race would also attack without restraint. By then, the war would become a chaotic one. This was something that they could not allow to happen now. Let's retreat first. As he spoke, Morong-yu put Fan Tong and the others into the Hichu Luoshu world, then teleported back to the holy city. Just as they disappeared, a small demon race team with tens of thousands of people rushed over from afar. It seems to be the Shengzhen's Morong-yu? I heard that guy is not only powerful, but his medical skills are even more terrifying. He has healed many seriously injured people. If we can kill or capture him, we will definitely be rewarded greatly. It's just a pity. Countless demon race experts looked in the direction that Morong-yu and the others had disappeared and could not help but shake their heads and sigh. After returning to the holy city, Morong-yu let Fan Tong out. Then, with a single thought, he appeared in Primeval College on the Eldritch continent. Appearing in Xiang Sungwu's courtyard, Morong-yu immediately shouted, "Elder Xiang, you're not dead yet, right?" Xiang Sungwu, who was resting with his eyes closed in the courtyard, could not help but shudder when he heard Morong-yu's words. Then, the thought of slapping Morong-yu to death flashed through his mind. Xiang Sungwu walked out and resisted the urge to slap Morong-yu to death. His face darkened as he said, "If you're not dead, how can I die in Primeval College? I'm just concerned about you. If you're dead, can I come back to collect your corpse?" Morong-yu chuckled. "What's the matter?" Xiang Sungwu asked directly. Morong-yu would never visit a temple for no reason. Every time he came, there must be something. Xiang Sungwu was already used to it. "Do you know about the Eastern Wilderness?" "Nonsense, who doesn't know about the battlefield between the two races?" Morong-yu's face darkened. This old man knew that he did not mean it that way. "Why did you choose the Eastern Wilderness as the battlefield?" Morong-yu asked again. He felt that there was something fishy about the two races choosing that place as the battlefield. It was not because it was far away from the human race and the demon race's territory. The battlefield designated by the higher-ups. Xiang Sungwu pondered for a moment, then looked at Murong Yu with a serious expression. Kid, do you know something? It seemed like Xiang Sungwu knew something. Chapter 1081. Xiang Sungwu obviously knew something, so Murong Yu looked straight at him. Kid, why did you suddenly ask this question? Do you know anything about the Eastern Wilderness? Xiang Sungwu asked again. Murong Yu shook his head. I found something strange in the Eastern Wilderness. I vaguely felt that something was wrong, so I came to find you. Old man, if you know anything, quickly tell me. Looking at Xiang Sungwu's expression, Murong Yu's face became serious. Fine, you have the right to know. Xiang Sungwu sighed, then continued speaking in a low voice. According to legends, before the ancient times, the God world was not like this. At that time, the God world was a huge continent. And it was just called the God world, there were no continents. Moreover, at that time, not only did the gods live in the God world, even the saints lived under the same sky. The world was peaceful. The saints and the gods lived in the same era? At that time, the God world's endurance was so strong? When Xiang Sungwu said this, Murong Yu could not help but ask. Xiang Sungwu shook his head. This is just a legend, no one knows whether it is true or not. What happened after that? It caused the God world and the holy world to separate? The gods and the saints became the existences of two different worlds? Also, why was the God world divided into so many continents? Murong Yu asked. According to legends, the saints and the gods lived under the same sky, and this situation lasted for countless years. But suddenly, one day, there were foreign experts who broke the peace of the God world. Those foreign experts are extremely powerful. Even an ordinary saint would not be able to withstand those foreign experts. According to legends, only the top saints were qualified to fight with those foreign experts. After these foreign experts appeared, they destroyed the world as if they wanted to destroy the world. In just one day, the entire God world was almost destroyed by them. Murong Yu once again couldn't help but interrupt Xiang Sungwu's words. Could it be that the divine realm was shattered by the battle between the saints and these foreign experts? How did he end up like this? Who were those foreign experts? Where did he come from? Why do you want to destroy the world? The strength of the foreign experts was extremely strong. Wherever they passed, the sky and earth were destroyed. All life forms were exterminated. It was a serious threat to the survival of the saint. As a result, the saints of the entire sacred world had organized themselves to wage war against those foreign experts. The war was extremely bitter, but it didn't last long. However, because of that battle, the entire God realm was also shattered. It was no longer suitable for experts above the saint realm to live in. However, in that battle, the saints of the God realm ultimately won. Kill all the foreign experts. However, the God realm's losses were also extremely severe. The deities were almost completely wiped out. Most of the sages were also dead. The entire continent of the God realm was sunk, and the vital energy of heaven and earth was scattered. There was no longer any land that could survive. Most of the remaining saints were injured as well. In the end, they found the current sacred world and moved all of them there. The entire continent of the God realm was sunk, and the deities were almost completely wiped out. There are so many continents in the God realm now. Are they all formed later? Also, what are those foreign experts? The continent we are in isn't a fragment of the original continent of the God realm, and it wasn't formed later. Instead, do you know what those foreign experts are? Murong Yu rolled his eyes. He seemed to have asked this question twice. Not only did Xiang Sungwu not answer, but he also asked a question in return. How would he know this? Those foreign experts weren't humans or demons. They weren't ferocious beasts either. They weren't any life forms that we know of. In fact, the ancients didn't even know where these experts came from. Why did they attack the God realm? Why did they want to destroy the world? These foreign experts were called desolates by the people of that time. Desolates. When he heard this, Murong Yu's heart couldn't help but sink. A bad feeling appeared in the depths of his heart. Do you feel that something is wrong? Legend has it that there were 5 strongest desolates at that time. The bad feeling in Murong Yu's heart became more and more intense. The 5 strongest desolates were called prehistoric desolates, heaven desolates, savage desolates, great desolates, and demon desolates. Xiang Sungwu said a shocking legend. The 5 biggest continents in the God realm. Are we on top of the corpse of desolates? Murong Yu blurted out. His face was full of shock. Congratulations, you got it right. Murong Yu was instantly stunned. How big were these desolates' bodies? They actually formed such a big continent. How big was the prehistoric continent? It was hard to describe the number. And this was just a corpse of desolate. If the 5 continents are desolates' corpses, then the other continents of different levels are also other desolates' corpses? Our God realm has always existed on top of desolates' corpses? Once desolates' corpses are destroyed, wouldn't the continents of the God realm be destroyed as well? These are just legends. As for whether the continents are desolates' corpses, we don't know. Because, since ancient times, many people have wanted to verify the authenticity of this legend. But there has been no answer. Xiang Sungwu shook his head. He didn't care about it at all. What's strange about the Eastern Desolates? Murong Yu, who was still in shock, told Fan Tong about their discovery. What did you think? Xiang Sungwu pondered for a moment. Then, he looked at Murong Yu. Don't tell me that Eastern Desolates is going to be revived? If it's really going to be revived, our God realm will be destroyed by it. No one is its match. Murong Yu said in a deep voice. Although the Eastern Desolates wasn't as big as the prehistoric continent, it was definitely not small. Once Eastern Desolates was revived, not to mention the God realm, even most of the saints in the holy world wouldn't be its match. Don't tell me that the people above are going to revive Eastern Desolates? Murong Yu pointed upwards and said doubtfully. Impossible. In the holy world, humans and demons are mortal enemies. It's impossible for them to work together to revive Eastern Desolate. Moreover, the revival of Eastern Desolates won't benefit them at all. On the contrary, it might destroy the God realm and destroy their foundation. Xiang Sungwu immediately denied it. Although he hadn't become a saint yet, there were saints in the primeval college. They would more or less know something about the holy world. Of course, these were things that the saints wanted them to know. As for whether it was the truth or not, that was another matter. This is definitely a conspiracy. Otherwise, why would they have to fight in the Eastern Desolates? Murong Yu still couldn't help but doubt it. If the God realm is really filled with Desolates' corpses, there's a possibility that the Desolates will be revived in any war. If they want to revive the Desolates, why not revive the strongest ones in the prehistoric continent? Xiang Sungwu asked. Maybe these Desolates are too strong and can't be revived. Or maybe the people above feel that they can't control these existences. Murong Yu speculated. These are all legends after all. It's still uncertain whether it's true or not. Don't take it seriously. Murong Yu nodded and immediately left. Hichu, do you think it's possible that this is true? Murong Yu immediately asked after entering Hichu Luoshu. The reason why he didn't ask Hichu if he'd heard of this was because Hichu hadn't heard of it. Otherwise, he would have mentioned it to Murong Yu long ago. It's not impossible. However, if the God realm is filled with Desolates' corpses, I might know the origins of these Desolate. There's really such an existence? Murong Yu was shocked. If that legend is true, those Desolates might be primal chaos bugs, also known as world exterminating bug. They exist in the endless primal chaos and are extremely strong. What they love to eat the most is any life form, as well as space. Once they discover any kind of world, they will devour those worlds, because this will help them increase their strength. Since they can destroy worlds, why doesn't the sovereign, heaven, kill them directly? Murong Yu asked doubtfully. In the endless primal chaos, not even the sovereign is a match for them. However, because of the sovereign, the world-exterminating bugs don't dare to wantonly attack worlds. If that legend is true, then something must have happened to the sovereign back then. That's why the world-exterminating bugs attacked and nearly destroyed the world. Only the master of primal chaos can completely destroy those world-exterminating bugs. At the same time, I have to tell you something. The world you're in isn't the first world to be born in the primal chaos. Before this world, there were countless civilizations. Those civilizations were all destroyed by the world-exterminating bug. Even the sovereign was killed. Murong Yu's heart sank. In the beginning, he felt that the people who killed Zhao Yun were his strongest enemies. Once he killed them, he wouldn't have to worry about the world. Later, he learned that there were 10 sovereigns above the saints in this world, and above the sovereigns was the sovereign. At that time, he learned that the sovereigns and sovereigns were his strongest enemies. But now he knew that the sovereigns and sovereigns were nothing. His true enemies, including the enemies of this world, were the most terrifying. They were the world-exterminating bugs. The world-exterminating bugs like to eat worlds. In this world, only the sovereigns and sovereigns have the power to stop them. Once the sovereigns and sovereigns are killed, the world-exterminating bugs will charge in without restraint. Could it be that heaven created the heavenly punishment writ because he didn't have time to deal with the evildoers of the world? That he spent all his time on guard against the world-exterminating bugs? This thought suddenly appeared in Murong Yu's mind. After discussing the world-exterminating bugs with Hichu decided to tell Murong Yu more about the world-exterminating bug. However, the more he knew, the heavier Murong Yu's heart became. Because he knew that the world-exterminating bugs of the Primeval Age and Eternity Age were nothing more than ordinary creatures among the world-exterminating bugs. Chapter 1082. How terrifying was desolation, who could even kill sovereigns? No wonder even sovereigns were no match for desolation in the endless primal chaos. Only by relying on the power of the world could sovereigns resist desolation's attack. Only with the existence of sovereigns could this world avoid being destroyed by desolation. However, sovereigns weren't omnipotent or invincible. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many civilizations before Murong Yu's world were devoured by desolation. After receiving Hichu's confirmation, Murong Yu was basically certain that the continents in the God realm were the corpses of desolation. However, would these desolations revive? He didn't know. It was only a 50-50 chance. Swish! Murong Yu appeared in the Primal Chaos secret ground and walked straight into Lu Haotsong's hall. Don't tell me you're going to break through again? Lu Haotsong was sitting on a chair. When he saw Murong Yu, he opened his eyes slightly and asked. Murong Yu rolled his eyes. He wanted to break through again. However, he hadn't comprehended the chaotic celestial records to a higher level and couldn't break through. Old Lu, tell me honestly. What's the situation in the holy world? Are humans and demons mortal enemies in the holy world? Murong Yu sat down and asked directly. Why are you asking this? Even if you know, it won't do you any good. Lu Haotsong glanced at him and said. Moreover, what Murong Yu didn't know was that the difference between saints and gods wasn't just the difference in strength. Saints had abilities that gods didn't have. In the god realm, if gods talked about saints, the saints in the holy world would sense it. The stronger the saints were, the stronger their senses. If one could establish a relationship with the saints, they could even borrow the saints' power. This kind of borrowing was temporary. As long as the saints were willing, they could do it. If the saints in the god realm were ordinary people or good people, it wouldn't be a problem. But if you are an evil person, those saints will send down some disasters, and in the end you will die suddenly. Therefore, most of the gods did not mention the name of the saint. He didn't even mention the word saint. Just like Xiang Sungwu and the others, when they spoke, they only pointed at the sky, or rather, the people above. Moreover, if a deity knew too much about a saint, a force would descend upon that person. It would cause a disaster for this person. This was why Lu Haotsang always said that it would not benefit him if Murongyu knew about the higher-ups, and if they knew some great secrets of the sacred world, the people of the god realm might die on the spot. No one could explain why, and no one knew what kind of power it was. Immediately, Lu Haotsang told these things to Murongyu. Murongyu was the only way he could leave the chaotic secret plane. He didn't want to die because Murongyu knew too much. In that case, he wouldn't be able to leave this chaotic secret plane for the rest of his life. Just say it. These things can't affect me. Murongyu said indifferently. He was originally a chaotic celestial body, so he had a great resistance to that kind of power. Moreover, he had Hichu Luoshu and the Yin-Yang Cauldron. These super-existences would naturally affect those inexplicable powers. However, Lu Haotsang still didn't say anything. In the end, Murongyu came back to life and couldn't help but shout, "Are you a man or not? You're so wishy-washy. If you don't say it, if those desolates in the god realm are really resurrected, the entire god realm will be destroyed. Even the sacred world will be destroyed." Lu Haotsang was immediately stunned. It was not because of Murongyu's sudden outburst, but because he heard about the resurrection of desolates. As an undead stage saint, he naturally knew more about desolates than the people of the god realm. Because he knew that the legends about desolates in the god realm were not just legends, but real. Impossible. The human race and the demon race will work together to resurrect desolates? Lu Haotsang immediately denied after recovering from his shock. Why is it impossible? Murongyu sneered and told him about the strange things he found in the eastern wilderness. Lu Haotsang's face immediately darkened. Because he also felt that Murongyu's words seemed to make some sense. In the sacred world, the human race and the demon race are mortal enemies. They have been mortal enemies for a long time. Why would they work together? Could it be? Lu Haotsang's face suddenly changed. Could it be what? Murongyu hurriedly asked. Murongyu, do you really want to know about the sacred world? Lu Haotsang didn't answer directly, but said solemnly. Murongyu nodded. Lu Haotsang immediately fell silent, as if he was organizing his words. After a long time, he slowly opened his mouth. In the sacred world, although there were as many forces as the sand in the Ganges, but in general they were divided into three forces: the human race, the demon race, and the sacred world. Murongyu frowned slightly. The human race and the demon race can be understood. But what is the sacred world? Lu Haotsang sneered. The sacred world is actually the human race, and there is no difference between them and the human race. It's just that they call themselves the sacred world. Arrogant and superior. Ignorant people. It seemed that Lu Haotsang didn't like the sacred world? Murongyu was puzzled. You also know about the legend of Desolate. The human race and the demon race in the sacred world were the saints who lived in the god world before. But because of desolates they suffered heavy casualties, and the god world was almost destroyed. Therefore, they finally found the current sacred world. Before they ascended, there were natives in the sacred world. They were all humans, and each of them was a saint. They were very powerful. These original characters were very unhappy about ascending and sharing the resources that originally belonged to the sacred world. Therefore, they kept suppressing the human race and the demon race from the beginning. In the beginning, the human race and the demon race joined forces to resist. But because of desolates, the two races suffered heavy losses. Less than 1/10 of the original saint. And most of them were injured saints. Therefore, even if the two races joined forces, they were not the sacred ancestors' match at all. In the end, the human race and the demon race were almost exterminated by the sacred ancestor, and were forced to live in exile in a remote place of the sacred world. Since the human race and the demon race joined forces, they should be friends and not enemies. Why are they mortal enemies now? Murong Yu asked puzzledly. Lu Haotsong sneered. This is because the demon race betrayed the human race and joined the sacred world. How could those arrogant and conceited sacred world really accept the demon race? They just want to separate and attack. Because of the demon race's betrayal, the human race was almost exterminated. And the demon race didn't end well, and was almost exterminated by the sacred world. The current sacred world is still dominated by the sacred world. Although the human race and the demon race have developed for many years, they are still unable to compete with the sacred world. They can only struggle to survive in remote places. Murong Yu's face darkened. So the sacred world was like this. So what if they were immortal and indestructible? They might as well live happily in the divine world or the immortal world. Moreover, the human race has always been in internal strife, and can't develop at all, let alone fight against the sacred world. The current human race can't even compare to the demon race. The demon race is much more united than the human race. The 4 great academies of the divine world should be controlled by 4 different human forces in the sacred world. Lu Haotsong felt anger, unwillingness, and a sense of exasperation. In other words, the people of the divine world are unable to ascend. It's not because of the human race, but because of the sacred world's interference? Murong Yu asked in a deep voice. Lu Haotsong nodded. With the bleak situation of the human race and demon race in the sacred world, they wanted nothing more than for all the humans and demons in the divine world to become saints. Why would they stop them from ascending? However, in the sacred world, the human race and demon race were the weaker race. As the natives of the sacred world's control far exceeded that of the human race and demon race. Therefore, they could interfere with the ascension of the human race and demon race. They could even kill them directly. If they didn't kill them, they would capture those who ascended and sell them as slaves. Therefore, although the human race had control, they couldn't allow more people to ascend. They could only try their best to leave some insights of the saints in the 4 great academies. As for those who didn't ascend from the 4 great academies, they couldn't do anything. Could it be that the human race and demon race are joining forces again to revive the eastern wilderness to fight against the sacred world? Murong Yu's brows flashed coldly. He was very resistant to such methods. Once the desolate world was revived, the divine world would definitely be destroyed. Moreover, whether the human race and demon race could control the desolate world was still a problem. In the end, the entire world might be destroyed. The human race, demon race, and sacred world would no longer exist. The human race and demon race aren't a match for the sacred world even if they join forces. Unless a powerful expert appears in the human race and demon race, they can fight against the sacred world. Otherwise, even if the 2 races aren't destroyed, they can only struggle to survive in the sacred world forever. Lu Haotsong said helplessly. He seemed to recall his helpless life in the divine world. Therefore, reviving the desolate world might be the only way to fight against the sacred world. Murong Yu shook his head. He didn't agree at all. Fighting against the sacred world required the human race and demon race's own strength. They couldn't rely on a terrifying creature like the desolate world. Is there a way to stop the revival of the desolate world? Lu Haotsong shook his head. If this is really led by the human race and demon race, it's best that you don't interfere. Otherwise, you'll definitely die. Even if you succeed in stopping the revival of the desolate world, you won't have a place to stay when you ascend to the sacred world. Even if there's no place to stay, I will stop them from reviving the desolate world. Murong Yu's foundation was in the divine world, the immortal world, and the cultivation world. He definitely wouldn't allow the desolate world to destroy all of this. Old Lu, do your best to think of a way to destroy them for me. I'll leave first. Murong Yu's heart was heavy as he directly left the chaotic secret plane. Chapter 1083. The more he knew, the heavier Murong Yu's mood became. After leaving the chaotic secret ground, Murong Yu communicated with Fangor and the others. They all knew about the legend before the ancient times. But Murong Yu didn't tell them that the legend was true. He didn't tell anyone about the situation of the human race in the holy world. Murong Yu wasn't afraid of those inexplicable powers. But Fangor and the others didn't have any heaven-defying treasures like the Hichu Luoshu. If they knew too much, they might really die suddenly. Therefore, Murong Yu didn't tell them for their own good. Hichu, if desolation really resurrects, will the Hichu Luoshu be affected? Murong Yu asked in his mind. Desolation can't affect the Hichu Luoshu. If desolation really resurrects and the God realm is destroyed, you can enter. However, once the God realm collapses, the Hichu Luoshu won't be affected, but there won't be heaven and earth Yuan Qi. Of course, you can absorb the power of chaos, space, and lightning. But the others can't. Murong Yu nodded slightly. He could still improve his realm and even ascend to the holy world in the future. But what about the others? Without heaven and earth Yuan Qi, they couldn't continue to improve their realm. In the end, they would only die from exhaustion. Of course, if Murong Yu could ascend before them, he could take them to the holy world. But what if desolation resurrects and even the holy world can't resist it? In that case, even an undead saint would die. By the way, if the God realm collapses, won't secret planes like the chaotic secret plane collapse as well? Some of the secret grounds should also collapse. However, even if they don't collapse, they will be scattered in the turbulent space. Hichu said in a deep voice. It seems that we have to stop the war from continuing. Murong Yu's face showed a touch of worry. Stopping the war was easier said than done. With Murong Yu and Shengzhen's current strength, it was impossible. Even Primeval College might not be able to stop the war. The saints of the sacred world would never allow that. If anyone disobeyed the order, they would be killed immediately. Then, if Murong Yu wanted to stop the war, there was only one possibility: to control the heaven realm. As long as he controlled the heaven domain and the millions of quasi-saint in the heaven domain, he would be able to rule the entire God realm. This way, he would be able to stop the war. However, if that happened, the saints above would definitely be enraged. They would send down a torrential fury to kill Murong Yu. In the future, when Murong Yu ascended to the saints' world, there would be no place for him to stay. For myself, for my family, and for the people of the world, so what if I have to become enemies with the entire saints' world? Murong Yu made up his mind. If I want to increase my strength quickly, I can only rely on the heaven's punishment token. Murong Yu muttered. If you use the heaven's punishment token, the heavens might discover that you are a chaotic celestial body. You might be killed by the heavens before you succeed. Of course, this is your choice. I won't interfere. Hichu's voice sounded in Murong Yu's ears. This matter didn't just concern Murong Yu's life, it also concerned his family and the entire world. Therefore, Murong Yu didn't make a decision immediately. Instead, he returned to Shengzhen. He gathered Zhao Jiqing, the 3 girls, and Murong Xian's group of 4. Zhao Jiqing's group of 7 looked at Murong Yu in confusion. They didn't know why, but when they saw Murong Yu's calm face, they felt a little nervous. Murong Yu didn't say anything. His gaze quietly swept across the 7 people. When everyone felt stifled, he finally spoke. What if I tell you that this world is about to be destroyed? I can save this world, but if I want to save it, my life will be in great danger. It might even be destroyed before I can start saving it. What do you think I should do? The expressions of Zhao Jiqing's group of 7 changed drastically. What made them change their expressions wasn't that the world was about to be destroyed, but Murong Yu's last sentence. Father, what's going on? Who wants to destroy the world? Murong Xian stood up and looked at Murong Yu as he asked in a deep voice. Murong Yu shook his head. He couldn't say it. Murong Xian and the others were still too weak. Once they found out about it, they would probably die a violent death. Moreover, Murong Yu wasn't sure if the humans and demons above were really joining hands to revive desolation. I'm just saying if. Father, are you asking us to make a choice? If the world is really about to be destroyed, you can save it. This feeling is a good thing. That way, Father, you will be the greatest person in the world. But if you do it, you will put yourself in danger. If you succeed, everyone will be fine. If you fail, this world will be destroyed. Even if I succeed, it will still be dangerous. Murong Yu added in his heart. Father, I think you should go save this world. Anyway, it's death either way. Who knows, you might succeed. Murong Xian said with a solemn expression. Murong Yu smiled bitterly in his heart. If he didn't save them, even if the God realm collapsed, they would be fine. But in the future, he would have to watch his relatives exhaust their lifespans and leave him. What if I tell you that even if the world is about to be destroyed, I can protect you? Even if the world is destroyed, we will be fine. What will you choose? Everyone was silent. For a moment they looked at each other, not knowing how to choose. Father, I think you should save the world. Murong Xian was still the same. Murong Yu looked over. Tell me your reason. If the world is really about to be destroyed. Father, even if you can protect us and Shenzhen. But how many people can you protect? Although your sacred weapon is powerful, it is still different from the God realm. However, there were still some differences compared to the God world. There were no secret planes, no danger zones, and no adventures. Without the real world, without living beings, so what if we can live forever? I agree with fourth brother. Father, go save the world. Murong Xian said with a solemn expression at this time. Are all of you the same? Murong Yu's gaze slowly swept across everyone's faces. Everyone nodded. Good. If this world is really about to be destroyed, I will definitely save it. Murong Yu suddenly laughed. However, Zhao Jiqing and the others couldn't laugh. Each of them had a solemn expression. What's wrong with you? It's not like the world is about to be destroyed. It's just a hypothesis. Murong Yu laughed and said. At the same time, he communicated with the river diagram in his mind. What do you think? Once my identity is exposed and I'm killed by the heavens or someone else, you must take them into the world of the river diagram and the Book of Luo no matter what. Even if they are lonely in the Hichu Luoshu for the rest of their lives, I don't want them to be destroyed. The reason why he gave this order to Hichu was that once he died, Hichu would immediately fall into a deep sleep. However, with Hichu's ability, it was possible for him to keep Zhao Jiqing and the others in the Hichu Luoshu world before he fell into a deep sleep. I will do my best. After a few months of reuniting with Shenzhen and the others, Murong Yu returned to the East Continent. It was worth mentioning that Kurlan had been captured by the Lan family. It was said that she was going to undergo special training. Therefore, Murong Yu didn't see her when he returned. As for Murong Yu's favorite disciple, Xiao Xian, she had joined Shenzhen's team long ago and became one of the 100,000 powerhouses. With her ability to hide, although she hadn't reached the level of a heavenly master, if the quasi-saint didn't appear, a heavenly master wouldn't be able to discover her. Moreover, Murong Yu had placed many teleportation points on her. Once she was in danger, he could rush over immediately. As soon as he walked out of the Hichu Luoshu, Murong Yu realized that the holy city was shrouded in an oppressive atmosphere. Murong Yu was shocked and thought that the demon clan's army was coming. However, when he spread out his divine thought, he didn't find anything. With a thought, Murong Yu left the holy city. Then, he went to a few places. However, the oppressive atmosphere was still there. Is the eastern wilderness really going to be revived? Murong Yu's heart was heavy. He and Fan Tong had felt this oppressive atmosphere on the battlefield before. However, now the entire eastern wilderness could feel it. Fan Tong, what's wrong these days? Murong Yu found Fan Tong and asked. The feeling that something is wrong is getting stronger. You can feel it too. The oppressive atmosphere is covering the entire eastern wilderness, Fan Tong said with a serious expression. Fan Tong, leave the eastern wilderness and return to the floating mountain, Murong Yu said after thinking for a while. Fan Tong was stunned and then shook his head. This is a battlefield. How can a disciple of the Fan family go back? Murong Yu sighed in his heart. Once the eastern wilderness was revived, everything in the eastern wilderness would become food for the eastern wilderness. However, he could not tell anyone about this. Once he told them, it would not be for their own good. It would be harming them. Murong Yu, do you know something? Fan Tong sized up Murong Yu. Although Murong Yu looked calm, Fan Tong still felt something. What could it be? I just feel that something is wrong with the eastern wilderness. So, I'm preparing to withdraw Shengzhen's disciples. Fan Tong shook his head and said with a smile, maybe it's because too many people have died. You don't have to worry too much. By the way, although something is wrong with the eastern wilderness, some good things have appeared in the past few days. As he spoke, a blood-red crystal the size of a pinky appeared in Fan Tong's hand. It was transparent. There's nothing special about it. Murong Yu glanced at it. This blood-red crystal did not contain any powerful energy, nor did it have any special waves. This crystal is called a blood crystal. It can increase one's comprehension. Fan Tong looked at Murong Yu and said calmly. What? Murong Yu was shocked. What he needed most now was comprehension. Otherwise, he would not have thought of using the heavenly punishment token to increase his cultivation. Chapter 1084. It would take a long time to comprehend the deeper level of the records of chaotic celestial bodies. However, if one's power of understanding could be greatly increased, it would speed up the process of comprehension. The reason why the Heavens Punishment Order could directly increase Murong Yu's level was because of the Heavens Punishment Order. The Heavens Punishment Order could greatly increase Murong Yu's power of understanding and allow him to break through in a short period of time. If the blood crystal could also increase a person's power of understanding, Murong Yu wouldn't need to risk being discovered by the heavens to use the Heavens Punishment Order. How much power of understanding can a blood crystal increase? How long can it last? Murong Yu was instantly excited. The increase in power of understanding and the duration depends on the quality of the blood crystal. The higher the quality, the higher the power of understanding and the longer the duration. However, it is said that even the lowest quality blood crystal can double a person's power of understanding. Fan Tong immediately explained. Double a person's power of understanding. This was no different from getting twice the result with half the effort. Originally, a person could only comprehend and break through in 100 eras. However, after using the blood crystal, one would only need 500 eras to break through in a short period of time. To those who were nearing the end of their lifespan, this was definitely the most precious thing. In fact, the higher the level of the blood crystal, the more precious it was to a person. For example, a rank 10 quasi-saint was limited by his power of understanding and couldn't comprehend and break through in a long time. However, if he had the blood crystal to increase his power of understanding, he could comprehend, break through, and ascend. Where can I find this blood crystal? Is there a lot of it? Murong Yu's eyes shone brightly. If there were a lot of these blood crystals, he would only accept blood crystals as payment for his consultation fees in the future. A piece of blood crystal was much more precious than the holy grade mountain and holy grade artifact. It is only found in the East Wilderness. This is something that has never been found in the realm of the god. However, it's extremely rare, and I had to resort to all sorts of methods to get my hands on this small piece. Fan Tong sighed in disappointment. Murong Yu frowned slightly. Only in the East Wilderness? Is it because of the war? The blood crystal wasn't just because it was blood red, but also because it emitted a faint smell of blood. It was as though it was a crystal formed by blood. That was why they were called blood crystals. There are very few blood crystals, and the functions of the blood crystals have already spread throughout the entire Eastern Wilderness. Those quasi-saint level experts are all searching. Fan Tong shook his head, a helpless look on his face. There were not many blood crystals to begin with, and now that so many people were searching for them, the chances of obtaining blood crystals had become extremely slim. Moreover, everyone knew the use of the blood crystal. It was something that could not be bought with money. Once a blood crystal appeared, countless experts would fight for it. Blood crystals have only been found on the battlefield. Was it really related to the war? Was it condensed from the blood of countless experts? It's said that although the blood crystal has a heaven-defying ability to increase comprehension, it also contains a terrifying murderous aura. Baleful Qi. Murong Yu frowned slightly. He took the blood crystal the size of a pinky from Fan Tong's hand and extended his divine sense to cover it. However, other than the faint smell of blood, he did not sense any murderous aura. Not long ago, an immemorial God Realm powerhouse obtained a blood crystal. He thought that he could take the opportunity to advance to the Heavenly Master level. However, the moment he used the blood crystal, he was attacked by the terrifying murderous aura. In the end, his body exploded and he died. This kind of thing has happened many times. Moreover, other people who have used the blood crystal also said that the blood crystal contains murderous aura. Because of this, many people think that the blood crystal is condensed from the blood on the battlefield. Murong Yu nodded. After understanding more from Fan Tong, he returned to Saint City. After instructing Wen Ling and the rest to guard outside Saint City, he quickly left Saint City and rushed into the battlefield. The Eastern Wilderness was huge, and so was the battlefield. If it was in the past, once the two tribes met, they would immediately attack and kill the other party. However, because of the blood crystal, many people were on the battlefield. Countless people lingered around the battlefield. Even if they saw the enemy, they would not attack. This was because everyone wanted to find the blood crystal. To them, finding the blood crystal and advancing to the next level was more important than the war. Murong Yu also extended his divine sense to search the battlefield. However, he was disappointed that he did not find any blood crystals even after a few months. In fact, he had never heard of anyone finding a blood crystal. Even if someone found out, they wouldn't publicize it. Instead, they would hide it secretly. I'm afraid there are no more than 1,000 blood crystals in the entire battlefield. Including those that had not been exposed, it was probably less than $2,000. However, there are more than 2,000 trillion experts from the human tribe and the demon tribe in the Eastern Wilderness. Murong Yu pondered as he flew. He decided to search for a while longer. If he still couldn't find anything, he could only use the heavenly punishment token to increase his cultivation. At this moment, his divine will suddenly discovered a flash of blood-red light. Could it be blood crystals? Murong Yu suddenly felt a burst of excitement in his heart. In a flash, he had already shot toward the location of the bloody light. Blood crystal. Ha ha! Murong Yu hadn't flown over yet. A loud laugh came from afar. When he took a closer look, a middle-aged man had already appeared near the bloody light. At this moment, he was holding a blood-red crystal that was the size of a pinky finger in his hand. What else could it be if it wasn't a blood crystal? Murong Yu was instantly enraged. He was the one who found the blood crystal first, but the middle-aged man snatched it away. Hand over the blood crystal. Murong Yu went closer and looked at the middle-aged man who was laughing gloomily. At this moment, Morong Yu realized that the man was a quasi-saint. His strength had far surpassed his. The middle-aged man was from the human tribe. After obtaining the blood crystal, he was extremely excited. However, he suddenly heard Morong Yu's words. He was instantly shocked as he thought that someone who was more powerful than him had found it. However, when he saw Morong Yu, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. A heavenly emperor realm little fellow actually asked him to hand over the blood crystal? Did he hear it wrongly? Kid, you asked me to hand over the blood crystal? The middle-aged quasi-saint looked at Morong Yu with a ferocious look on his face. I found the blood crystal first, so it naturally belongs to me. Even if he was a quasi-saint, he wasn't afraid. Get lost! The quasi-saint roared. He flipped his hand and slapped at Morong Yu. Terrifying energy exploded and tore the sky and earth apart. If Morong Yu was hit by this slap, he would definitely die. Haha! Blood crystal! The despicable human tribe is having an internal conflict again. At this moment, a towering demonic aura rushed towards the horizon and approached rapidly. Before the person got close, a disgusting laugh came from afar. Swoosh! Morong Yu's body swayed and disappeared on the spot. He had already entered the Hichu Luoshu world. At the same time, the quasi-saint from the demon tribe had already rushed over. You humans don't have the right to use the blood crystal. It all belongs to the demon tribe. The quasi-saint from the demon tribe rushed over and stretched out a furry claw to grab the quasi-saint from the human tribe. The human tribe expert sneered and kept the blood crystal in his storage space. Then, he exploded with powerful energy and started fighting the quasi-saint from the demon tribe. Both of them were rank 3 quasi-saint and their strength was similar. However, Morong Yu, who had entered the Hichu Luoshu world, controlled the Hichu Luoshu to retreat quickly. The battle between the two quasi-sages was truly earth-shattering, causing the sun and moon to lose their light. The most terrifying thing was that even the space was shattered and the space was turbulent. If Morong Yu were to stay here, there was a chance that he'd be sucked into the chaotic space. Boom! 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 The two quasi-saints fought wildly. In Morong Yu's eyes, every time they exchanged blows, the space around them would collapse from the force of their collision. Streams of turbulent space continuously shot out like tongues of fire. The two of them fought as they walked. They didn't want to be swept into the turbulent space. Our strength is about the same. Although it's terrifying, it's impossible to determine the victor in a short time. Hey, you dare to steal my blood crystal. You're really courting death. In the Hichu Luoshu, Morong Yu's eyes flashed coldly, and his killing intent surged. With a thought, Morong Yu returned to the holy city. Yang Qin, Zhuoqiu Qing, come with me. Yang Qin and Zhuoqiu Qing, who were guarding the holy city, were resting with their eyes closed when they suddenly heard Morong Yu's words. Then, a powerful force acted on them. The two of them didn't resist at all. With a swoosh, they disappeared from their original spot and reappeared in the Hichu Luoshu world. Morong Yu didn't have time to say anything to them. He only sent 2 beams of divine light into their bodies and told them in detail what had happened earlier. At the same time, Morong Yu had already reappeared in the battlefield where he found the blood crystal. Swoosh! Swoosh! Yang Qin and Zhuoqiu Qing immediately appeared in the Hichu Luoshu world. However, there was no one fighting on the battlefield. The two of them didn't hesitate at all and flew in different directions. However, what puzzled them was that they could still see the energy waves left behind by the two quasi-saints' battle. However, the two of them had already disappeared. They're gone. Morong Yu walked out of the Hichu Luoshu world with a puzzled expression on his face. Only a few breaths had passed since he left and reappeared. How far could the 2 rank 3 quasi-saints escape in a few breaths' time? Could they have been killed by someone else? If the other party was a rank 10 quasi-saint, he could easily kill the 2 rank 3 quasi-saints. However, Morong Yu didn't sense any new aura in the void. Aura. Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat. He immediately followed the aura left behind by the two rank 3 quasi-saints' auras. Not long after, he suddenly realized that the aura of the two rank 3 quasi-saints' auras had disappeared into thin air. Could they have been sucked into the turbulent space? Murong Yu was puzzled. He stepped into the air and arrived at the place where the two rank 3 quasi-saints had disappeared. Swoosh. However, when he arrived at that area, an extremely strong force acted on his body. Then, before he could react, he disappeared from Yang Qin and Zhuoqiuqing's sight with a swoosh. Chapter 1085. Holy Lord! Yang Qin and Zhuoqiuqing were shocked when they saw Murong Yu vanish from their sight in an instant. They immediately cried out in surprise and stretched out their hands to grab at the space in front of them. However, apart from grabbing a ball of air, they didn't grab anything. Their enormous divine consciousness spread out in all directions like a tide. Instantly, everything within a radius of billions of miles was under their control. They saw many things, but the only thing they didn't see was Murong Yu. Is there something strange there? Yang Qin and Zhuoqiuqing exchanged a glance, and then they both walked over. Zhuoqiuqing, stay here. If there's something wrong there and even I vanish, return to the holy city. At the same time, report this matter to the Holy Mother and the others. Yang Qin suddenly stopped Zhuoqiuqing when they were halfway there. The Holy Mother was naturally Zhao Jiqing. Only Zhao Jiqing had such an honor in Shenzhen. When Murong Yu wasn't in Shenzhen, everything in Shenzhen was managed by Zhao Jiqing. Therefore, once Murong Yu vanished, they could only tell Zhao Jiqing and let her take charge. Zhuoqiuqing stood up and nodded solemnly. Then, Yang Qin walked over. When she arrived at the place where Murong Yu had vanished, a strong force immediately acted on her. Yang Qin instantly vanished from Zhuoqiuqing's sight. This time Zhuoqiuqing saw it clearly. She discovered that Yang Qin had vanished into thin air. It was as if she'd been directly teleported to another place. Zhuoqiuqing frowned slightly and stood where she was without leaving. However, she knew that although Murong Yu had vanished, he wasn't dead. She had Murong Yu's soul jade slip in her possession. Most importantly, she was under Murong Yu's control. If Murong Yu were to die, her control over him would immediately be removed. She didn't feel anything wrong with her body. What's the situation? When Murong Yu stepped into the void, he felt an incomparably powerful force acting on him. His first thought was to enter the Hichu Luoshu world. However, just as he thought about it, he found himself in an unfamiliar space. There were no stars, no sun, no blue sky, and no white clouds. There was only a dusky sky. Looking around, everything else was the same as the God realm. Did we enter another secret plane? Murong Yu's eyes flashed with doubt. He extended his spirit sense, wanting to scan everything around him. However, what made him depressed was that his spiritual will was not as strong as when he was an immortal. In fact, his divine will could only cover a radius of 5,000 kilometers at most. To a heavenly emperor realm powerhouse, one step could cross, who knows how many tens of thousands of miles of distance. Even his strength is being suppressed? After discovering that his spiritual will had been suppressed, Murong Yu immediately felt his strength. The result was no different from what he had expected. His strength was greatly suppressed. Murong Yu's current strength was probably equivalent to a true god or heavenly god in the god realm. However, what made Murong Yu feel slightly comforted was that although his spiritual will and strength were suppressed here, the strength of his physical body was not suppressed. With his physical body that had reached the level of a supreme artifact, he was almost invincible in the god realm. If this is an unexplored secret area, then, hee. Murong Yu chuckled in his heart. He immediately unfurled his angelic wings, spread his divine sense to its limits, and flew forward at high speed. How is this possible? After a while, Morong Yu retracted his angel's wings and descended from the sky. This was because he was shocked to find that during the process of flying, his strength was being depleted by 10 times. After flying for less than 100,000 kilometers, his strength was already depleted by 10%. However, with the power of his 3 godheads, the depleted strength could be easily replenished. However, Morong Yu found that the strength he absorbed here was different from the vitality of heaven and earth in the God realm. It carried an extremely violent killing intent. Morong Yu did not absorb much of this killing intent, but it made him a little frustrated, and his character became irritable. He even had an impulse to kill someone. The vitality of heaven and earth actually contains a huge amount of killing intent. After Morong Yu absorbed a few more strands of vitality of heaven and earth, he immediately confirmed that the killing intent here was serious. Could it be that the gray sky is shrouded by the killing intent? Morong Yu looked up at the sky. Then, he closed the 1 billion pores on his body. The power of space and the drifting power of thunder and lightning here all contained a huge amount of killing intent. However, Morong Yu did not need to absorb this power at all. Because the roots of the tree of life were rooted in the chaos space, he only needed to absorb the chaos space. Spreading his angel's wings again, Morong Yu flew up to the sky again. Although the consumption of strength was terrifying, with the ability of the tree of life, it was enough to maintain balance. Boom, boom, boom. Morong Yu did not fly for long before he heard a series of loud roars in front of him. Waves of incomparably powerful energy fluctuations came from afar. Someone is fighting. Morong Yu flew over. From afar, he saw a surge of monster aura. Then, he saw the 2 people who were in the middle of a fight. When he saw the 2 people clearly, Morong Yu was instantly amused. Weren't the 2 people from the human clan and the monster clan fighting the 2 rank 3 quasi-saint who had disappeared previously? These 2 idiots had also entered this secret plane. Moreover, what made Morong Yu the funniest was that these 2 people's realms were similar to his. They seemed to be in the heavenly God or the true God realm. I wonder how it feels to be a quasi-saint who can only exert the strength of a heavenly God? Morong Yu thought in his heart, but he had already flown towards the 2 people. When he was in the realm of the gods, when the 2 of them were fighting, he did not dare to get close. This was because the shock waves from their battle were enough to kill him. Even if he was in the Hichu Luoshu world, he could be thrown into the space turbulence. However, now that the 2 people's strength was similar to Morong Yu's, they could not hurt Morong Yu at all. Moreover, they could not even break the space, let alone throw Morong Yu into the turbulent space turbulence. Morong Yu hovered above the 2 quasi-saints' heads and looked down at them and said in a deep voice, "Both of you, how does it feel to fall from the quasi-saints' level to the heavenly God realm?" Perhaps because they valued their strength, the 2 quasi-saints fought on the ground even when they were fighting. However, before Morong Yu came over, the 2 quasi-saints were in a sorry state. Their hair was disheveled and the clothes on their faces were all torn apart, revealing ghastly wounds that were so deep that their bones could be seen. Streams of God's blood spurted out continuously, as if they were gangsters fighting on the streets of the mortal world. Hearing Morong Yu's voice, the 2 quasi-saints were shocked. When they saw Morong Yu hovering in the air, they couldn't help but sneer. They knew that the chi of heaven and earth here contained a terrifying murderous aura and consumed a lot of energy. If they wanted to recover their strength, they had to absorb it slowly. Flying was the most energy-consuming method. Therefore, they did not fly. Therefore, when they saw Morong Yu flying, they sneered in disdain. "Give me the blood crystal and I will spare your lives. Otherwise, this strange space will be the burial ground of the 2 quasi-saints." Morong Yu hovered in the void and looked at the 2 quasi-saints indifferently as he said in a cold voice. At this moment, Morong Yu felt very good. Threatening 2 rank 3 quasi-saints with the strength of a heavenly emperor? Moreover, He did not have anything to rely on. In the realm of the gods, who would dare to do so? The only exception was Morongyu. You're courting death. The sage-to-be of the human clan roared at once. He threw a punch at Morongyu. If we were in the realm of the gods outside, perhaps I would run away when I see you. But here, killing you is as easy as slaughtering a dog. As he spoke, Morongyu's figure swayed and flew down. At the same time, he threw a punch. Boom! The two fists fiercely bombarded together, and an earth-shattering explosion erupted. An incomparably terrifying impact swept out in all directions like a tidal wave. Immediately, Morongyu and the human quasi-saints were sent flying. This is so infuriating. The human quasi-saint was sent flying a few hundred miles away, while the Morongyu only retreated a few dozen miles before stopping. From this, it could be seen that Morongyu's strength was above his. He was a quasi-saint. Therefore, when he saw this scene, he immediately roared. In the midst of his roar, the human quasi-saint attacked again. Like a stream of light, he rushed to Morongyu and threw a punch. A rank 3 quasi-saint is only SOSO. Morongyu smiled indifferently. He took a step forward and threw another punch. Boom! After an earth-shattering sound, the human quasi-saint's entire body was sent flying. However, Morongyu just stood on the spot. His body did not even tremble. Previously, Morongyu had only used his strength. Now, Morongyu had unleashed the strength of his body. His body was at the level of a legendary weapon. So what if his opponent was a quasi-saint? He was still sent flying with a punch. Morongyu was exhilarated. Who else could send a rank 3 quasi-saint flying with a punch like him? No one in the entire realm of the gods. Hand over the blood crystal and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, you'll die. Morongyu stepped forward step by step. Every step was the same distance as he slowly closed in on the human quasi-saint. Don't even think about it. The human quasi-saint was furious. He roared and charged forward again. However, he was once again sent flying with a punch from Morongyu. Moreover, this time, Morongyu's strength was much stronger than before. He broke both of the quasi-saint's hands. In the realm of the gods, broken hands could be repaired with just a thought. However, it consumed a lot of energy here. In order to repair the broken hands, a large amount of energy had to be consumed. Moreover, Morongyu did not give him any time to repair his hands. Chapter 1086. Boom! Just as Quasi-Saint was pushed back, Morongyu rushed in front of him and punched him hard. Although they were in the same realm, Morongyu's speed and physical body were many times stronger than Quasi-Saint's. Therefore, he arrived in front of Quasi-Saint in a single step. After a loud thud, Quasi-Saint screamed in agony and was sent flying. A violent force slammed into his body. In an instant, his entire body was blasted open with many ghastly wounds that looked like spider webs. Blood splattered like a fountain. However, this time, Morongyu did not attack. Instead, he stood where he was and stared coldly at Quasi-Saint, who was lying on the ground in the distance. Hand over the blood crystal and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, this day next year will be your death anniversary. The demi-saint of the human race was furious. However, he could not do anything about the suppression of power in this strange space. He, a quasi-saint, had become a punching bag for a sky emperor. In fact, in this space, even if Morongyu was only in the heaven god realm, he could still beat Quasi-Saint until he cried for his parent. He was unwilling to give up, but he could feel Morongyu's terrifying murderous intent. If he did not hand over the blood crystal, he would be killed by Morongyu. By then, everything he had, including his life, would be taken away by Morongyu. Damn it, if we meet outside you'll definitely die. Quasi-Saint took out the blood crystal and threw it to Morongyu in order to save his life. However, his face was filled with resentment. Inwardly, he was gnashing his teeth, wishing he could slap Morongyu to death. I've said that I won't allow anyone to touch my things. Morong Yu checked the blood crystal and kept it in his Hichu Luoshu after confirming that there was nothing wrong with it. You can leave now. Morong Yu looked at him calmly. He was not afraid of him in this space at all. In the realm of the gods, he was even less afraid. Stay here. Quasi-Saint of the Monster Clan was about to leave, but Morong Yu looked at him and said coldly. Quasi-Saint of the Monster Clan's face instantly darkened. I have no feud with you, what do you want? Quasi-Saint of the Monster Clan did not leave nor did he attack. In terms of speed, he was not as fast as Morong Yu. In terms of strength, he was no match for Morong Yu. Therefore, he could not escape. He was like a fish on the chopping board. No feud? Have you forgotten that the two tribes are at war now? Cut the crap and hand over your storage ring, or die. This was a great opportunity. If he did not take advantage of it, Morong Yu would feel sorry for himself. Quasi-Saint of the Monster Clan looked at Morong Yu with hatred. Finally, he took off his storage ring and handed it to Morong Yu. Then, he quickly left. A blood crystal should not be of much use. This should be the first time this secret land has appeared. Let's explore it first, Morong Yu thought for a while after the two Quasi-Saint of the Monster Clan left. Then, he also left. Along the way, Morong Yu did not encounter any powerful ferocious beasts. Even the ferocious beasts that he encountered were only real gods and heavenly gods. It seemed that the heavenly god realm was the highest realm in this space. However, during this process, Morong Yu discovered that although the ferocious beasts' realms were not high, their physical bodies were generally stronger than the gods in the realm of the god. The ferocious beasts' bodies were at least of lower-grade divine weapon level. Morong Yu even saw some middle-grade divine weapons and even upper-grade divine weapon-level ferocious beasts. Could it be that this space only focuses on the cultivation of the physical body? That's right. Since I can't increase my realms, I can only increase the cultivation of the physical body, Morong Yu thought to himself. Unknowingly, he had already flown a long distance away. For the ferocious beasts whose realms were not high, their crystal cores were useless to Morong Yu. Hence, other than killing a few ferocious beasts to test the strength of their physical bodies, Morong Yu did not take any action. He did not come across any valuable universe treasure. However, he came across quite a number of divine materials and divine fruit. It was a pity that the divine materials and divine fruits were tainted with an enormous amount of ferocious qi. The medicinal properties had already disappeared. Even if Morong Yu used them, it would be useless. All of a sudden, Morong Yu abruptly came to a stop. This was because he saw a village not far away in front of him. The village was not big, with a population of about a few hundred. There are actually humans living in this secret realm? Morong Yu even saw children playing in the village. He was immediately shocked. This was the first time he had encountered humans living in the secret realm. It was also the first time he had heard of it. However, the appearance of humans told Morong Yu that this secret realm was definitely not ordinary. Immediately, Morong Yu descended from the sky and strode toward the village. Stop! Before he got close to the village, a loud roar came from the bushes next to him. Then, two giant men walked out of the bushes with a murderous aura. Morong Yu was not surprised by this, because he had already discovered the existence of these two men. They should be the patrollers of this village. Who are you? Two large men rushed out from the thicket and stood in front of Morong Yu like two small mountains. Their voices were filled with energy, causing Morong Yu's blood and qi to become restless. Two high-grade divine artifact-level bodies. Morong Yu glanced at them and saw the realm of their bodies. However, his cultivation realm was the same as those fierce beasts. They were only in the divine realm. You too, I'm just a passerby. I saw a village here and wanted to rest here. You also know that there are many fierce beasts outside. Morong Yu said to the two giant men with a smile on his face. Oh, I see. Then please enter our Xiang village. The fierce beasts outside are fierce. It's really dangerous to wander outside alone. One of the two giant men scratched his head and smiled at Morongyu. Then, he made a gesture of invitation. Gu Kai. At this moment, another burly man shouted at the gigantic man with a silly smile, who was called Gu Kai. Big brother Yen, I don't think this brother is a bad person. The fierce beasts outside are really fierce. If he gets hurt, I'll feel bad. Gu Kai looked at Big Brother Yen and scratched his head. You believe him just because he said a few words? What if he's a spy from a hostile tribe? You don't care about the safety of the village. Big Brother Yen Lai said in a deep voice. Big Brother Yen, I feel that he's not a bad person. Gu Kai still wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by Yen Lai. Brother, it's not that our Xiang village doesn't welcome you. There are just too many enemies now. You should leave this place before it gets dark. Yen Lai turned his head to look at Morongyu and urged him to leave. Morongyu was helpless, but he did not say anything. This was because ever since he cultivated the Shi character formula, he could see through the hearts of others. Whether it was Gu Kai or Yen Lai, they were not bad people, and they did not have any ill intentions towards Morongyu. However, as Yen Lai said, Morongyu came at the wrong time. Since they were not bad people, Morongyu did not want to have any conflict with them. After all, this was the first village he saw here, and he still needed to learn more about this space from them. Immediately, he was about to leave. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. However, just as Morongyu was about to leave, 3 ear-piercing sounds pierced through the air, bringing with them a terrifying aura that could destroy the world. Immediately, Morongyu's expression changed. This was because he felt that he was being targeted. Morongyu knew that the enemies of Xiang village had thought that he was from Xiang village and had been ambushed. He immediately turned around and looked behind him. 3 streaks of black light pierced through the void and shot over at lightning speed. Morongyu snorted coldly, took a step forward, and punched at the black light that was shooting towards him. Don't block it with your hands. The crossbow arrow is poisonous. Seeing this, Gu Kai immediately roared. At the same time, he pulled out a machete that was taller than Morongyu and slashed at the black light that was shooting towards him. Since Gu Kai shouted, it was obvious that these poisons were also fatal to people of their level. However, Morongyu was not afraid. He did not believe that the crossbow arrow could hurt his body that had reached the level of a great divine artifact. Boom! Morongyu's fist landed on the crossbow bolt. After a furious roar, the incoming crossbow arrow was directly shattered. Morongyu, on the other hand, remained motionless in his original position. On the other side, Gu Kai and Yen Lai also unleashed their strength and knocked away the 2 crossbow arrows that were shooting towards them. TSK, the trash of Xiang village really have some strength. At this moment, a group of hundreds of people came out of the bushes in front of them and looked at Morongyu and the other 2 with disdain. It's the people of High Sun village. Yen Lai's face suddenly became gloomy, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. At the same time, Gu Kai roared. After hearing Gu Kai's roar, the people of Xiang village behind them were in chaos. At the same time, a large group of men rushed out, each of them holding strange weapons and looking at the people of High Sun village with murderous intent. Mi Yang, what are you doing here? Yen Lai stepped out and looked at the young man who was leading the other side with a serious expression. It was this person who spoke before. Of course, I'm here to subdue you. Will you submit or be exterminated? You must make a choice today. Otherwise, Xiang village will cease to exist after today. Brother Mi Yang, didn't you say that you would only kill all their men? Just take the women back and use them as sex slaves. A wretched young man from High Sun village stood out and looked coldly at Morongyu and the others with murderous intent. At the same time, he looked at the women of Xiang village behind Morongyu and the others with a lewd expression. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.